One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Tuesday, the 8th of April. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Now, Prince Harry is in the High Court fighting to reinstate his taxpayer-funded royal security. We'll bring you the latest lines as we get them throughout the show. And we're asking, do you think Harry warrants continued state protection?
Yes, and from one fighting pit to another, King Charles and Queen Camilla are gearing up for a trip to the Colosseum in Rome as they continue their historic visit to the Italian capital. Our royal correspondent joins us throughout the show.
Their Majesties remain stoic at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Very shortly, they'll be arriving here to this symbol of Rome, the ancient Colosseum, where they're expected to meet lots of crowds.
Beautiful backdrop.
And as the royals roam in Rome, rats see the size of cats roam the streets of Birmingham, with experts now warning of a health crisis sweeping the city. Luckily, the local MP has been avidly campaigning for a new airport in Pakistan. We're live on the ground.
And of course, we'll bring you analysis of the market meltdown and Trump's continued strategy. He's calling people who are concerned panicans.
Yes. I don't think it's the smartest portmanteau, but...
No? He's saying stay cool, calm, collected. He's saying that he's going to be negotiating. I don't know what to make of it all, really, at this stage.
It looks like this new tack to say he will be negotiating has calmed the Asian markets.
Yeah.
It looks like there's recovery in the London markets today. At 2:30, we'll see the New York Stock Exchange open. Could there be recovery there too? And frankly, how much of this is actually a little bit of a rowback from Donald Trump after many senators, I mean, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, strong Republicans who had seemed to be allies of Donald Trump, saying this tariff stuff is a bad idea.
He's been saying this for days, though, that he's expecting people to come to the table. He was tweeting furiously about Japan 2 days ago. So I'm not sure if you could say it's a row back. Because, I mean, who knows exactly what Donald Trump wants to do. But if the stock markets do stabilise a bit, we can say everything's going to be OK.
Well, I don't know if we'll recover the 12% losses that we've
Perhaps
seen.
not, no.
But if things are on the up, it might be back to where we were in maybe a year's time, maybe 6 months' time. Who's to say who's going to be the mystic Meg of the markets here? But of course,
perhaps
all
you
of
at
the
home
royal...
know more than we do. Perhaps you're a king of the stock market, queen of the stock market. Let us know your thoughts.
Maybe now's the time to buy. Although as soon as I say that, I'm sure it will fall again.
Probably.
But this is, of course, all in the context of wider political news. We'll be bringing you what the Prime Minister has to say and looking at that royal tour of Rome after your headlines with Sophia.
Tom Emily, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 12 o'clock. These are your headlines. The Duke of Sussex has arrived at the Royal Courts of Justice in London to appeal a decision to downgrade his security arrangements while in the UK. Prince Harry is challenging a 2020 Home Office decision reducing his taxpayer-funded protection after stepping back as a full-time royal. Last February, a High Court judge upheld the decision, finding it rational. Harry's team, though, argues he was unfairly treated, lacking proper risk and analysis. Donald Trump has called for calm despite trillions of dollars being wiped from global markets by his tariffs. The US president urged his critics to not be a panickin, coining a new phrase which he describes as based on weak and stupid people. It comes as European markets opened higher, with London's FTSE 100 rising in the first few minutes of trading this morning after several days of heavy losses. Meanwhile, China has vowed to fight to the end in response to Donald Trump's threat of an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports. Overnight, the US president further escalated his rhetoric on trade with Beijing and the EU over tariffs.
With China, as you know, against my statement, they put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariffs were already. And I said, if that tariff isn't removed by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on. The European Union's been very bad to us. They don't take our cars, like Japan in that sense. They don't take our agricultural product. They don't take anything practically.
But Beijing's Commerce Ministry said it would never accept the blackmail nature of the US. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the Chancellor has been taking questions in the Commons over Donald Trump's tariffs. Rachel Reeves promised the public, we've got your backs.
The United States' decision to impose tariffs has had and will continue to have huge implications for the world economy. These implications have been reflected in the reaction that we have seen in global markets in recent days, which the financial authorities have, of course, been monitoring closely. This morning I spoke to the Governor of the Bank of England, who has confirmed that markets are functioning effectively and that our banking system is resilient. I know too that this is an anxious time for families who are worried about the cost of living. We have your backs.
In other news, Donald Trump has said the US and Iran will hold direct talks over possible nuclear deals on Saturday, stating Iran will be in great danger if negotiations fail. The US president disclosed the talks after a White House meeting with Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu. The meeting has also been confirmed by Iran's foreign minister, who pushed back, saying the talks would be indirect but could be as much an opportunity as it is a test. Trump said they are taking place at almost the highest level, but he didn't specify who would take part or where they would be held. Now, a baby girl has become the first child in the UK to be born to a mother from a womb transplant. 36-year-old Grace Davidson received the transplant in 2023 from her older sister Amy and fell pregnant with her miracle baby shortly after. Davidson, an NHS dietitian from North London, was diagnosed with a rare condition of having no womb when she was just 19. She said the birth of her daughter, who she named Amy after her sister, was the greatest gift we could ever have asked for. Earlier, GB News spoke to consultant obstetrician Bryony Jones, who delivered Amy.
It was special. It felt special because it was the accumulation of years of work from the Womb Transplant UK team, and I was incredibly honoured to be part of that team.
And the King and Queen have arrived at Quirinal Palace to meet the Italian Prime Minister. Charles and Camilla are in Rome for the start of a 4-day state visit, which will celebrate ties between the UK and Italy. The state visit was originally intended to include the Vatican, where the King had been due to attend a service in the Sistine Chapel, but that had been postponed because of the ill health of Pope Francis. Earlier, the King and Queen shared 3 new photographs marking their 20th wedding anniversary, which is tomorrow. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Tom and Emily.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past midday. Now, the Duke of Sussex is at the Royal Courts of Justice in London, where his appeal against a High Court ruling on his UK security level, and frankly its funding, is underway.
Yes, Prince Harry, he's challenging a 2020 Home Office decision reducing his taxpayer-funded protection after he chose to step back as a full-time royal. I think this is pretty much last chance saloon for Prince Harry and this case.
Certainly is, but let's turn now to our man in the know, our royal expert. Outside the Royal Courts of Justice is our very own reporter, Adam Cherry. Adam, what is going on today?
Yeah, thank you for that, Tom. Appreciate the promotion. I've been inside the Royal Court of Justice throughout the morning. The hearing began at about 10:30. At the moment, we're just hearing from Prince Harry's KC, his lawyer, his barrister, who is opening the remarks this morning. It's a 2-day hearing, so we'll be back here tomorrow. We won't hear a judgment ultimately tomorrow either. It's going to be a judgment in writing at a later stage. Prince Harry here, of course, he's just sitting at the back, kind of poker face. He's not really giving anything away at this stage, but I'd say, we're still making the opening arguments. But as you said, Emily, this is really the end of a 5-year saga, and it began in February 2020 when, of course, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stood down as working members of the royal family. It went all the way to the High Court. His claim was dismissed in February 2024, so just over a year ago. And now the Court of Appeal has granted him his case, and that's why we're here today. So it's, as I say, it's a 2-day hearing. His KC is saying that he was given improper and unjustified and improper treatment, and that RAVEC, which is the Royal and VIP Executive Committee who made this decision to scale back his security, did so without conducting a proper risk assessment. So that's where we are at the moment. As I said, going to be here throughout the afternoon delivering the latest lines on this, so any more breaking developments, you'll be the first to hear them, guys.
Well, fantastic stuff. But Adam, before you go, I've got to ask, have you seen Prince Harry? You said he was sitting at the back of the courtroom. What was his demeanour as he approached? Because this is unusual, actually, the fact that he's actually turned up to London for this hearing today. I mean, we have seen various court hearings in the past where he hasn't turned up and has simply been represented by his lawyers.
Yeah, he's sitting in the back surrounded by his lawyers. He's not giving anything away. Totally deadpan, poker-faced. But as I said, they're still just outlining his defence. Maybe he'll get a little bit more animated once they start accusing him of things and start fighting back against his claim and his appeal. Like I said, we'll find out. Perhaps that'll be tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Much more to come on this, Tom. I know you're looking forward to hearing about it.
We are indeed. And Cherry, thank you very much indeed outside the Royal Courts of Justice for us as this legal saga continues. I do wonder, Tom, Prince Harry's so keen to have this really high security when he's in the UK, but what does he come to the UK for? He doesn't appear to have a relationship with his father anymore. He doesn't appear to have a relationship with his brother anymore, very sadly. His grandchildren have never even stepped foot in this country, as far as I know. Meghan doesn't seem particularly interested in this country. Indeed, she hates large parts of it, including asserting that perhaps there's quite a bit of racism in this country. So I'm just wondering why he's so keen to get this top security in this country. Is he planning many a visit in the future?
Well, the Invictus Games operates in this country, doesn't it?
But there'll be top security for that in and of itself, surely. I don't know. I wonder if it's just stubborn Harry. He just wants to win. Just wants to win.
Well, while Prince Harry's appeal is underway, of course, in court, the King and Queen are carrying on with the affairs of state in Italy. They're expected to arrive at the Colosseum in Rome very shortly for a tour of this ancient stadium.
Yes, and this tour marks part of their 4-day state visit to Italy.
So let's cross across to the Colosseum now. Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker is in Rome for us, standing in front of that magnificent building. Cameron, when can we expect to see the royal family?
Yeah, it is pretty stunning, Tom, isn't it? And we are expecting to see the King and Queen relatively shortly. Of course, they've already been out and about today. They met the President at his presidential palace here in Rome and was given a Guard of Honour welcome, and that coincided literally within 5 minutes of Prince Harry arriving in court. So an unwelcome distraction back in London. But for the King and Queen, they're remaining pretty stoic, laying a wreath at the unknown soldier. We believe they're having a bit of a spot of lunch at the moment, and then they'll be coming down here to the Colosseum. The crowds are huge. Now, granted, it's probably a mix of tourists who are here already, and they've just got a nice addition of their sightseeing tour, seeing King Charles and Queen Camilla outside the Colosseum. But there certainly are a few royal fans who have turned out as well in order to greet their majesties, and we are expecting them to greet members of the public. You may be able to hear a band playing in the background. That's the band of the Welsh Guards who have travelled across from the UK to perform alongside some Italian counterparts as well. And when they finished one of their tunes earlier, the crowds erupted into applause and cheers, and I suspect those cheers and applause will be a lot louder when the King and Queen do turn up. So I suspect we'll hear it before we see them. When the King and Queen have meted the crowd, we're expecting them to come up here to the position where I am standing to hear about the restoration work going on to preserve this ancient Colosseum, Roman Colosseum, for future generations. They'll be meeting archaeologists as well who have spent time excavating this site, as well as kind of a famous Italian TV presenter who does a lot with archaeological programs here in Italy. Speaking to the Italian journalists here, they're all very excited to see that TV presenter for sure. The Queen is also going to be talking to people from a community domestic violence charity here outside of the Colosseum, and we are expecting them, of course, because they are in Rome, when in Rome as the phrase goes, we are expecting their majesties to pose for photographs outside this famous landmark before hot-footing it back to the UK ambassador's residence for a reception that they are hosting for the British and Italian communities. It's that soft power that we see here, Tom and Emily, shoring up those relations between Britain and Italy, because then we have people trailing them, such as Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who's accompanying His Majesty the King here, taking part in political discussions behind the scenes. Of course, less than a week since President Trump imposed tariffs on the UK and the EU, affecting exports from UK and Italian countries, and of course the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, and it's shining a light on the NATO allies that the UK and Italy are, and the shared strength in terms of the military might that we have.
And Cameron, closer to home as well, while the King is in Rome, surely he will have one eye on what's going on back in London at the High Court with Prince Harry, because we know that was one of the main reasons why there's been so much friction between the two. The King doesn't approve, does he, of what Prince Harry is doing with this legal challenge?
Yeah, I suspect people behind the scenes in the palace are a bit frustrated that all of this is clashing with the state visit. In fairness to Prince Harry, he doesn't set the court dates. That is for the Court of Appeal, but he doesn't have to physically be in the building while this trial is going on. But as you said earlier, Emily, I think this probably is a bit of a last chance saloon for Prince Harry, so he does want to appear in person, really to hammer home the fact that he does want his security really to get back to the way it was 5 years ago before he left as a working member of the royal family. He says he can't bring Meghan and his children to the UK because he doesn't feel they can be safe unless they have the same level of protection that his brother does, that his father does, that government ministers have with police escorts and so on. And he's got the Invictus Games coming to Birmingham in a couple of years' time. And we know from previous experience that Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, appears to turn up to them. Will Prince Harry allow her to do so? If she doesn't have what he sees as adequate protection, we'll have to wait and see. But it's a very difficult timing for the King and Queen here. But they they are ignoring what's going on with Prince Harry in London.
This is very interesting time. And Cameron Walker, thank you very much. You're outside the Colosseum in Rome for us for this 4-day state visit. And it also coincides with King Charles and Queen Camilla's 20th wedding anniversary. So they'll be celebrating in Rome, Rome style.
Absolutely lovely. And we will be, of course, back with Cameron as soon as the King and Queen arrive there at the Colosseum, seeing all of those live pictures.
We will indeed. But yes, of course, in other news, China is vowing to fight to the end as Donald Trump's trade war escalates. Beijing is accusing the United States of economic bullying following the US president's threat to slap an extra 50% tariff on Chinese goods if China doesn't withdraw its retaliatory import levies on American goods.
Meanwhile, European markets were up slightly when they opened for trading this morning after enduring a lot of turbulence yesterday and, frankly, Thursday and Friday too. The FTSE 100 yesterday experienced its worst day for a year.
Well, should we get the thoughts of economist and fellow at the Centre for Brexit Policy, Catherine McBride. Catherine, really appreciate your time on this. Now, Donald Trump is going around saying that, people who are concerned, the naysayers, are panicants and that we should all sort of keep calm and carry on. Much the same as what Keir Starmer is telling us over here, actually. What do you make of that? Are people right to be panicking?
No, I think that, what is happening is some of it is very sensible. People are moving out of stock markets, especially companies that really relied on exporting to the US. They are going to export a bit less. So it makes sense to move your money into something safer. And a lot of people are choosing to go into the bond markets. So President Trump has actually benefited hugely from this because his cost of borrowing has come down in the US, because a lot of people have rallied, gone into the bond markets. So it's actually working out very well for him. And I think we're going to see a bit more sense come into the market. You've got to remember that the only country in the world that has changed its tariffs is the US. We've seen some really silly things where people are getting out of Apple. When Apple sells mobile goods, as in phones and computers, all around the world, and the only country that's put its tariffs up is the US. And unfortunately, because of our very high sales taxes, in which we call VAT in the UK and in the EU, you may still find a lot of goods are cheaper in the US than they are here. But it intrigues me that the Europeans have been paying VAT for such a long time that they've forgotten about it. So when you get Ursula von der Leyen saying she's going to take all industrial tariffs down to zero, she's obviously have no self-awareness of how much the VAT is added into everything the Europeans buy. But also she hasn't read the USTR report on European trade barriers, which are not tariffs. I mean, they do have very high tariffs on agricultural goods, but they also have hundreds of trade barriers on other things, including on intellectual property and telecommunications and the tech companies and all of their digital service acts.
There's a political question here, though, isn't there, Catherine, in terms of what is Donald Trump actually trying to achieve with these tariffs? Because half of the people in the MAGA movement in the United States say that tariffs are a wonderful way to raise revenue. They could wipe away the national debt of the United States if only they had much higher tariffs, collected all this revenue from all of these people importing into the United States, and then everyone's happy. And then you speak to another half of the MAGA movement where they say, well, actually, this is all about reciprocation. We don't want any tariffs at all. We just want other countries to treat us fairly. Ideally, we put these tariffs up, then we do all of these deals and we wipe away the tariffs and start with a clean slate. I mean, I think just judging by what he says, Donald Trump forms into the former category rather than the latter, but could be pushed into that second category of doing these zero tariff deals if Congress pressures him enough. And we've started to hear from people like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz. Even Elon Musk has started to say that deals should be done. Could it be that actually some of the market recovery today is that we might see Donald Trump change from his original position and start doing some deals?
Well, he will do deals, and I think that was always the case. And certainly Scott Bassett, his Treasury Minister, was always talking about that. And the world will be divided into the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you like. And if you are in the good category, you'll get a trade deal, and you should do one if you get offered that. And the UK hopefully will be offered that. I think anyone who got 10%, which is their minimum, has got that and will get that opportunity. But we've got to also remember that for a long time, the US it has no no sales taxes. It doesn't have VAT and doesn't have a federal sales tax. Some of the states have sales taxes, but the highest one, California, is only 7.5%. And there's several states with zero sales taxes, which means that the US has always encouraged people to consume and buy things, where the EU and the UK have always discouraged consumption with these really high VAT. So that they're in a different boat. And what might end up happening is that their whole way of collecting taxes moves away from, say, corporate taxes, because Trump has also vowed to take corporate tax rates down to 15%, and moves on to a bit more of a consumption tax, but a very clever consumption tax, because it's only going to hit imported goods, which will also encourage the instruments of trade to move back into the US. It's so important that they get the...
Catherine, I have so many questions I want to ask you, but we sadly have run out of time and we have to take really annoying things called breaks. But Catherine McBride, really appreciate it. I hope we can speak again. I want to also find out what on earth the Bank of England should do, because I'm not quite sure why cutting interest rates would help, but I'm sure someone can explain to us later in the show.
Different schools of thought. Is inflation going to go up or down? Inflation could go down because we get loads of the goods that were going to the United States diverted to the UK. Lots to bring you this afternoon. Isn't it? Yeah, we're going to go live back to Rome. King Charles and Queen Camilla, of course, shortly arriving at the Colosseum. But for now, these beautiful marching bands building up that anticipation. See you back in just a couple of minutes. But before then, it's time for the Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize we've ever given away. It's your chance to drive away with a brand new motorhome worth over £67,000. Here are all the details you'll need.
We're making the Great British Giveaway a getaway with a chance to win our biggest prize to date. You could be the proud owner of this Elneg Baron 560 motorhome, worth over £67,000. Supplied brand new from Marquis Leisure, you could be exploring Great Britain and beyond this summer and making memories to last a lifetime. This motorhome comfortably sleeps four, has its own kitchen and bathroom spaces, and comes complete with all of the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle of this calibre. And that's not all, as we'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash so you can get started on your next adventure as soon as possible. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Can you find love in your twilight years? That's what we're asking this morning. Broadcaster Ryan Mark Parsons and former Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe join us now. Good to see you both this morning. Anne, let's start with you. Is 70 too old to date, do you think?
70 isn't too old for anything. Everybody ages at different rates, both mentally, physically, in the sorts of things they like. When you say to me, is 80 too late to, is 70, well, we might even say 80. It's too late to find love. The answer is just look around you. Lots of people have. But let me say right away, no, that's not an invitation. I've absolutely no ambitions in that area at all.
Ryan, Mark, what do you make of it? Do we need to stop putting a bar on ageing and dating?
No, I don't think we should. I think once you get to such an old age, you really should be looking for love internally. I mean, you should self-love. I just don't see the point at 70 years old to be searching for love at that point. I think you should go on a holiday somewhere. I think you should find love with the sunshine and a cocktail, perhaps, instead of looking for a man or a woman. I think at what point do you decide that you know, love is not going to come around knocking on your door? And I think probably at the age of 70, that is when you should decide it's time to give up. I'm 24, living in London. I know how incredibly hard it is to find love. I don't know how anyone who has wrinkles and grey hair at the age of 70, over someone like me, could perhaps find love. I just don't think it's possible. I think it's a nice idea, but I think it's not feasible. And also, I don't think there's any point at that age.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, should we head straight back to Italy? It's 12:28 because the King and Queen are shortly expected to arrive at the Colosseum in Rome for a tour of the ancient landmark.
Well, this tour marks, the first full day of their 4-day state visit to Italy. Our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, is there at the Colosseum for us. And Cameron, the festivities have already begun.
Yeah, they really have, Tom. You may be able to hear the Band of the Welsh Guards playing in the background. Down below where the crowds are, hundreds of people have gathered for a chance to glimpse their majesties and maybe even meet them as well. Now, granted, a few of them may well be tourists who are just very lucky to have got an extra bit of a sightseeing tour, but there are certainly a few royal fans as well. There's some school children who've been given Union flags to wave to. The Union flag, of course, was flown above the presidential palace here in Rome earlier on today for the King and Queen's ceremonial arrival, where the King inspected a guard of honour and was treated to a magnificent flypast by the Red Arrows and the Frecce Tricolori, the equivalent here in Italy, spewing out that coloured smoke across Rome. So festivities really have started here. The King and Queen, of course, because this is such an iconic backdrop, isn't it? The Roman Colosseum, the symbol of Rome is how Buckingham Palace is describing it. They will be posing, we believe, for a photograph pretty much in my position where I am now. They're also going to be the King at least is going to be meeting some of the archaeologists who are excavating the site here, discovering new ancient Roman artifacts, and we'll be hearing about the restoration work to preserve this building for future generations. Of course, it stood for well over 1,000. The Queen, meanwhile, she's going to be meeting some domestic violence workers who work for community groups here in Rome, and then both of them are going to meet back up and will be meeting a famous Italian TV presenter called Alberto Angela, who does a lot of work when it comes to archaeology, and all the Italian journalists who we've spoken to are very excited about him being here, so make of that what you will. But the King and Queen, we are expecting them to arrive relatively shortly. The first stop is going to be that walkabout. Already the King and Queen have been at the presidential palace this morning. They've also laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier and have, we believe, just been having a spot of lunch before they arrive here. But of course, 5 minutes before the King and Queen arrived at the presidential palace, Prince Harry turned up in hearing about, so perhaps a slightly unwelcome distraction for the King and Queen, but you wouldn't be able to tell, I think, from their reaction. They've remained pretty stoic, and they have just been carrying on with their royal duties, because it is the soft power of the monarchy, the soft power of King Charles, which really counts here. That's why the British government has sent him to Rome to strengthen relations between Italy and the United Kingdom. Two NATO allies, of course. Military strength has been a big theme so far on this trip. Lots of different military regiments from both the UK and Italy working together. We've had the fly past, we've had guards of honour both at the airport and indeed at the presidential palace, and we've got the Welsh guards and some Italian counterparts playing just about 100 metres from my position here, ahead of King Charles's arrival. Also, we've got Foreign Secretary David Lammy here in Rome accompanying the King. That soft power that the King musters has now opened doors to these political discussions which will be taking place behind closed doors. King and Queen will be the King at least will be meeting Prime Minister Maloney even tomorrow, and we know that she and Sir Keir Starmer have been working to combat illegal migration across Europe. So perhaps political discussions after the King's audience with the Prime Minister will focus on that. But of course, it's very poignant for the King and Queen too, Tom and Emily, because tomorrow they are celebrating their 20th wedding anniversary. We saw 3 beautiful new pictures released, taken last night at the UK ambassador's residence here in Rome, looking, very loved up, as perhaps you would after 20 years of marriage. And they're going to be guests of honour tomorrow at a magnificent state banquet, a black tie event for that anniversary. Perhaps there'll be some other things that Buckingham Palace have up their sleeve too, but they're keeping pretty tight-lipped about that so far.
OK, well, Cameron Walker, thank you indeed for being there with us. As always, we're going to be darting back to you throughout the programme as the King and Queen near the Colosseum there in the heart of Rome.
Archaeologists are still at work at the Colosseum. There's still more to find.
I'm sure.
Surely not.
But I mean, there's so much that's sort of covered up as the sort of the level of Rome rose over the years. You can always dig down
there's still
and
more
find.
To find?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, extraordinary. This is Good Afternoon. That's what I took from that conversation. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up. Yes, we will be heading back to Rome because the King and Queen are continuing their Italian job, as it were. They're heading to the Colosseum next. We will see them, bring you live pictures, of course, but we will get to the headlines as well with Sophia.
Tom, Emily, thank you. Your headlines at 12:33. The Duke of Sussex has arrived at the Royal Courts of Justice in London to appeal a decision to downgrade his security arrangements while in the UK. Prince Harry is challenging a 2020 Home Office decision reducing his taxpayer-funded protection after stepping back as a full-time royal. Last February, a High Court judge upheld the decision, finding it rational. Harry's team, though, argues he was unfairly treated, lacking proper risk analysis. In other news, Donald Trump has called for calm despite trillions of dollars being wiped from global markets by his tariffs. The US president urged his critics to not be a panickin, coining a new phrase which he describes as based on weak and stupid people. It comes as European markets opened higher, with London's FTSE 100 rising in the first few minutes of trading this morning after several days of heavy losses. Meanwhile, China has vowed to fight to the end in response to Trump's threat of an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports. Overnight, the US president further escalated his rhetoric on trade with Beijing and the EU over tariffs.
With China, as you know, against my statement, they put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariffs were already. And I said, if that tariff isn't removed by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on. The European Union's been very bad to us. They don't take our cars, like Japan in that sense. They don't take our agricultural product. They don't take anything practically.
But Beijing's Commerce Ministry said it would never accept the blackmail nature of the US. Meanwhile, the Chancellor has been taking questions in the Commons over Donald Trump's tariffs. Rachel Reeves promised the public, we have your backs.
The United States' decision to impose tariffs has had and will continue to have huge implications for the world economy. These implications have been reflected in the reaction that we have seen in global markets in recent days, which the financial authorities have, of course, been monitoring closely. This morning I spoke to the Governor of the Bank of England, who has confirmed that markets are functioning effectively and that our banking system is resilient. I know too that this is an anxious time for families who are worried about the cost of living. We have your backs.
Now, some breaking news. A 15-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl have been convicted of the manslaughter of an 80-year-old man who was attacked at a park in Leicestershire. Bim Coley was fatally injured in Franklin Park in Leicester on September the 1st while walking his dog and died in hospital the next evening. Both teenagers cannot be named for legal reasons. And a baby girl has become the first child in the UK to be born to a mother from a womb transplant. 36-year-old Grace Davidson received the transplant in 2023 from her older sister Amy and fell pregnant with her miracle baby shortly after. Davidson, a NHS dietitian from North London, was diagnosed with a rare condition of having no womb when she was just 19. She said the birth of her daughter, who she named Amy after her sister, was the greatest gift we could ever have asked for. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M1 in Leicestershire is closed southbound from junction 21 at Leicester to 20 at Lutterworth after an accident. There are queues back beyond junction 21A north of Leicester. There's also a lane closed northbound past the scene with long delays on that side too. In the West Midlands, the A45 Stonebridge Highway is blocked westbound by an accident off the A46 Festival Island south of Coventry, causing delays. And in West Sussex, the A23 is closed northbound from Pycombe to the Albourne junction for emergency repairs after a fuel spill yesterday causing delays heading away from Brighton. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 20 to 1. And grazie.
Oh, no, you're not going to try and speak Italian, are you?
What's hello in Italian?
Ciao.
Good morning. Ciao. Ciao, Bella. Let's go straight to Italy. Let's go straight to Rome, because the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, is there. He's arriving ahead of the King and Queen. I wonder if we can get those pictures up now of the Foreign Secretary. This all, of course, is part of the King and Queen's tour of Italy over the current 4 days. It's a 4-day state visit, but of course the Foreign Secretary David Lammy is there too. Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, is there for us just outside the Colosseum. Cameron, what's happening?
Hello, Tom. Well, the bands have struck up again, ready ahead of the King and Queen's arrival. We think they're slightly delayed. Perhaps their lunch has gone on slightly too long, but the crowds got very, very excited when a motorcade swooped in just in front of the Colosseum, but it turned out it was, as you said, Foreign Secretary David Lammy instead. He does have a very important role here as Foreign Secretary, of course. He is accompanying the King on this state visit. Don't forget that it is the UK government that sends the King on these visits to strengthen relations between two nations, so politicians like David Lammy, like Prime Minister Meloni in Italy, and others can sit down for political discussions. But what we're seeing this afternoon is that kind of pomp and pageantry and that soft power in action. It's that kind of welcome, it's those kind of memories, as the UK ambassador was telling us yesterday, that stick in people's memories for a generation, essentially, and they all remember the King and Queen's visits here. This is the 18th official visit of the King to Italy, but of course this is the first time that he has been here as King. I think the Queen's been around 2 times as well. Tomorrow he's also going to become the first British monarch in history to address a joint session of the Italian Parliament here, perhaps emphasising and kind of showing us the respect that the Italian lawmakers have for King Charles, 5 years, of course, on from Brexit. Of course, there's been a lot of political discussions going on in the last week, particularly around tariffs. We suspect they're going to come up in the political meetings, but King Charles does not get involved in those kind of discussions. Clearly, he has the niceties of meeting the president, attending the state banquets and other things too.
Star Wars theme in the background there. Is that the theme from a television from a film series about a republic defeating an empire? Is there a message there?
Well, Tom, you missed out earlier because they were also playing ABBA's Waterloo too. So perhaps battle themes in terms of the songs that they are playing. I think the Band of the Welsh Guards is known for playing tunes which are going to be easily recognisable by crowds from across the world. So I think that's why they're choosing these kind of tunes.
I thought we might get some beautiful Italian opera or something like that.
Songs that we hear. So you're in for a treat, Tom and Emily.
Well, no, it does look absolutely fantastic and does sound fantastic too, and we can hear the crowd really appreciating what is going on there. Of course, Cameron, we're going to be back with you as soon as we find out exactly when the King and Queen are arriving, as their lunch is as you say, perhaps rolling over slightly. We all know how delicious Italian food can be.
A long lunch. Who would say no to one in Rome, eh? Cameron, we'll tune in with you a little bit later. But yes, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, has made it on time. So there you go. That's good for us, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm sure the crowd was absolutely delighted to see him.
Knew exactly who he was.
Well, if you're in search for finding out what the weather is like in Rome or the rest of Italy, perhaps the wider European continent, here are your top holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A cold spell will affect eastern parts of Europe this week. Some areas could see temperatures 10 degrees below average. Rather showery at times across Madeira and Tenerife, with longer spells of rain later through the day. Largely dry, though, across Spain and Portugal, just perhaps the odd shower affecting Nice, Rome, Sardinia, and perhaps some shorelines of Greece. But otherwise largely settled, lots of sunshine around, but temperatures in the mid-teens. But we'll see more sunshine as we head through the week. Still rather showery across Tenerife, but temperatures improving to the mid to high teens by the time we reach Saturday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Right, well, it's not all about Rome today. It's not all about the royals. It's also about rats, the size of cats roaming the streets of Birmingham. We're going to be hearing from locals next. You want to stay tuned for that because their MP is campaigning for a new airport in Pakistan, surely you should be focusing on things closer to home, like this absolute state of a bin site.
Hello, it's time for your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Plenty of sunshine yet again for most of us today, and in that sunshine it is going to feel relatively warm, especially towards the west. We still have high pressure firmly in control. This high pressure is going to stay in control for a little while yet, and it's this that's leading to all the settled weather that we've had of late. It's worth bearing in mind there is some cloud around, still affecting the far north of Scotland, and there's a bit more high-level cloud around compared to yesterday, so the sunshine may be a bit hazy, a bit milky at times, but on the whole, most of us having a decent amount of blue sky, and with that blue sky, it's going to feel relatively warm, especially towards the west. Highest temperatures peaking around 18, possibly 19 Celsius, a little bit fresher towards the east because of that wind coming in, albeit the wind's not especially strong. Like I said, there is some cloud across the far north of Scotland. That will continue as we go through into this evening. In fact, that cloud's going to edge a bit further southwards as we go overnight as well. But before then, lots of clear weather to end the day and start the night across much of Scotland, Northern Ireland and also England and Wales. Worth bearing in mind, with these clear skies we will see some pockets of mist and fog developing as we go overnight, but they shouldn't cause too many problems. The other talking point will be the cloud that is going to spread down from the north, so across northern and eastern parts of Scotland, turning cloudier overnight, and down the eastern side of England as well. Some cloud, some low cloud, perhaps even some fog pushing its way in. Away from where we see the cloud, temperatures are going to take a bit of a drop, so particularly in rural spots, turning quite chilly through tomorrow morning, some frost in prone spots. As we go through tomorrow itself then, a bit of a cloudy start across some eastern parts, some low cloud, some fog. A lot of this will burn back as we go through the day, but some coastal parts of eastern England clinging onto that cloud, so staying pretty great here. Elsewhere though, lots of sunshine yet again, and in that sunshine feeling pretty warm. Temperatures similar to today, just a bit more of a breeze in the east and south.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, 12:49, and we're hearing that King Charles and Queen Camilla have finally arrived at the Colosseum. Here are some live pictures. There you go. You can spot their vehicle there.
Absolutely, you can tell it's the royal vehicle because of all the bells and whistles on the top of it, but also look at those British flags waving under the slightly overcast Roman sun. But yes, the crowd's clearly cheering and definitely excited to catch a glimpse of the King and the Queen at what is a remarkable location in the heart of Rome.
Can you spot them? Can you spot them? There's lots of fans, lots of flags. There's a close-up, of course, we've seen the vehicle, security as well there.
Now, this state visit is, of course, a big moment for the King. He had to cancel previous visits only just a couple of weeks ago because he is, of course, undergoing ongoing cancer treatment. But despite that, and despite some worries from many about this visit has indeed gone ahead. A full and busy schedule, 4 days as a working royal state visit to the Republic of Italy. And we can just about make out the king behind that fencing there, spending time with the crowd as they continue to wave their flags and shake hands, as some of them are doing, with the King of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and the Commonwealth realms.
Yes, and he's going to be chatting to some archaeologists who are still digging. How many years later? 1,000 years later? They're still digging away to try and find more artefacts and the like, while Queen Camilla goes and speaks to some domestic violence survivors and charities, I believe. So they've got a busy day.
Let's speak to Cameron Walker, who is just a few yards away from where all of this is happening. Cameron, the King and Queen have just arrived. We can catch a glimpse of Queen Camilla there and the King just to her right, shaking hands with the crowds.
Yeah, indeed, Tom. Spending time with school children who are waving Union flags, as well as royal fans and the very lucky tourists who just happen to be here at the Colosseum today. And I've got two for the price of one. They've had an incredibly busy day here, Tom, and as you were saying, it's a very busy four-day week for the state's visits. Of course, the King continues his cancer treatment. He had a little bit of a blip a couple of weeks ago where he ended up in hospital for a short period of time, but he was absolutely determined to be here in Rome for this state visit, and he has certainly not been slowing down the amount of engagements he's taking part in. If anything, more has been added, because if you remember, this originally was going to be two separate state visits, one to the Holy See, the Vatican as well, to meet Pope Francis, but because of Pope Francis's continued health battles with pneumonia and being in hospital for more than a month, that visit has been canned. Now, there are rumours and speculation that because Pope Francis was spotted in St. Peter's Square over the weekend, that there may well be a sneaky little meeting with the King, but that's certainly not being confirmed by Buckingham Palace, and in fact they say there's no plans for the King to meet the Pope. But what has happened is all of the engagements which were meant to happen at the Vatican today have been spread across 2 days, and those engagements have been extended, which is why perhaps they're going to be spending time at engagements a lot longer than they perhaps would have done. So King Charles, although he's 76, certainly not slowing down, and this is him in his element, really, meeting members of the public, meeting the crowds. He enjoys speaking to them, spending time with them, particularly from different nations. In fact, on the eve of his coronation on the Mall in 2023, when he was greeting members of the public there in a surprise walkabout, he was kind of doorstepped by an Italian news crew, and he told them that he loved Italy, and the UK ambassador told us yesterday that the feeling's very much mutual, and this is really soft power in action. That's what you're seeing at the moment, strengthening relations between Britain and Italy, and then you get those tough political discussions with David Lammy, Foreign Secretary, and all the rest of them taking part, happening a little bit later on. So once the King and Queen have met the crowds, they will be walking up the steps just over my right shoulder, where perhaps you will get a slightly better view of their Majesties, and they will be taking in the splendid sight of the symbol of Rome, the Colosseum, and perhaps posing for a photograph as well before they meet some other people who've been lined up to meet them, including archaeological students from the university here in Rome. The Queen's going to be meeting some domestic violence workers as well here. Of course, a passion of hers to combat domestic violence. So they are weaving in their passions, but of course the whole point is the UK government sending the King, a very global statesman, on these visits to strengthen relations, and that's exactly what we're seeing play out live here in Rome right now.
Certainly are, and my goodness me, it does.
Well, there's slightly dramatic music, to be fair.
Yes, very dramatic.
And it does seem to be that the King is spending genuine time with everyone that he is seeing along that row. They're shaking, I don't know how many hands, as we can see him go along that line, speaking to all of these people. But as you say, Cameron, it's not just the crowds he'll be meeting here. He'll also be meeting archaeologists and others too. We saw the Foreign Secretary zoom past a little earlier. What are we expecting for the rest of today?
Well, later on today, Tom, they've got one more engagement where they're going to be spending time at the UK ambassador's residence here in Rome, where they'll be hosting a reception for the British and Italian communities. We don't know exactly who is on that guest list, but if you remember, around a month ago, the King hosted an Italian-style dinner at his beloved Highgrove house in Gloucestershire, where we saw the likes of David Beckham, Victoria Beckham, Hollywood actor Stanley Tucci. Are these kind of people going to be turning up to this reception here in Rome? We'll have to wait and see, but we'll certainly, of course, bring you that on GB News when it happens. Tomorrow, another very busy day for the King here in Rome, meeting Prime Minister Meloni. We know that Prime Minister Meloni and, of course, Sir Keir Starmer have been working together to try and combat illegal migration in Europe. The King will also become the first British monarch in history to address a joint session of that happened before, suggesting that Italian lawmakers really place a huge importance and respect on the value of perhaps King Charles being here. And then on Thursday, he's jetting off to Ravenna, which is another town here in Italy, alongside the Queen, celebrating the 80th anniversary of British and Canadian troops, I should say, liberating the province from Nazi occupation. Of course, King Charles is head of state both here in Britain and in Canada, and of course we know what Donald Trump's views are on Canada. He's been playing with the idea of perhaps one day it should be the 51st state of the United States of America, so perhaps King Charles being there alongside British and Canadian troops could be a symbol to the contrary.
Well,
but we'll wait and see
indeed,
on that one. Of course, King Charles didn't say much on that.
Thank you very much indeed, Cameron Walker. We'll check in with you a little bit later on. The King and Queen very much greeting, getting stuck in there with the crowd, aren't they?
Absolutely.
All
We'll
smiles.
have that tour of the Colosseum in just a moment, but do stay with us here on Good Afternoon Britain in GB News. There's much else going on in the world today. We'll be live in Birmingham to hear about those bins after, of course, your latest... well, let's catch some adverts, then we're back with you.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
If you've read Spare, you'll know that Prince Harry's very open, isn't he, about his drug taking in the past. So it's going to be interesting to see if he was honest in his visa application.
Well, we're absolutely waiting for it. Yes, he admitted he took cannabis, cocaine and magic mushrooms, as we know in Spare, and also the Netflix series. He said that. There's been so much talk about it, and obviously Judge Carl Nichols originally said he refused to release any footage, saying that he basically because of Prince Harry's privacy. But as we know, Trump, border security and application of rule is one of his priorities. And I do see Harry as a pawn, really, for Trump and collateral. So everyone's waiting to see what happens. Tuesday is the day, D-Day. We don't know whether Prince Harry is quaking in his boots. But, you know, he quit being a working royal. Well, did he get preferential treatment? We don't know. There is possible misconduct. Apparently, DHS says that actually releasing the paperwork won't shed any light onto how things work. But there are thoughts as well that he could have entered on a special visa. Now, this is an A1 visa that deals with immigration paperwork. And it's a special kind of visa for heads of states and royal people. So Prince Harry could have got through on that, but we're waiting to hear. It's D-Day tomorrow.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 8th of April. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Well, Prince Harry is in High Court fighting to reinstate his taxpayer-funded royal security. We'll bring you the latest lines as we get them throughout the show. And we're asking, do you think Harry warrants this continued state protection?
But from one fighting pit to another, yes, King Charles and Queen Camilla are at the Colosseum in Rome. They're continuing their historic visit to the Italian capital, and our royal correspondent is with them throughout. Cameron Walker.
And you may just have been able to catch the King and Queen directly behind me there, posing for photographs outside the symbolic symbol of Rome, the ancient Colosseum.
Absolutely. Perhaps symbolic of Birmingham at the moment. Rats the size of cats roaming the streets. Experts are now warning of a health crisis sweeping the city. But don't worry, luckily the local MP has been avidly campaigning, and he's been campaigning for a new airport in Pakistan. We're live on the ground.
Well, Wes Streeting today, the Health Secretary says it's not acceptable for these kind of unsanitary positions to go on the streets of Birmingham. You can see behind me there is a dress-up rat that's going into the council meeting we're having today, as the Birmingham Conservatives are set to declare a motion to want a public health emergency.
Wow, well, it's one way to protest, get dressed up as a rat with a bin bag.
Elsewhere, Trump refuses to blink on tariffs so far, as he calls concerned Americans panicans. Not sure how that portmanteau goes down, but is he right to? Or are people right to panic? And has the Prime Minister spoken to the President yet? Well, we'll speak to our political editor, who's just been in an extended briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman.
That's right, the PM has spoken to Donald Trump since a week last Sunday before the tariffs were announced. Is that the right approach? With world leaders going to the front door of the White House trying to speak to the President, is that the right approach?
And just hearing the rather sad news that the Grand National horse, Celebrity Allen, has sadly passed away just 2 days after that Aintree race, which was a source of great controversy. The jockey who was riding him has been given a 10-day ban. Apparently the horse was completely exhausted and probably shouldn't have been taking part in that race to begin with. And once again, of course, a huge debate has erupted over whether we treat these horses well enough, whether they should be competing in the Grand National and other races, whether it's the right thing to be doing. Of course, animal groups are saying that it's not enough to suspend this jockey and that more needs to be done. He should be suspended for life, and just calling it barbaric and all of this. But it is so sad when you see a beautiful animal like that pass away, isn't it?
Really, really sad, and it seems to be just through exhaustion on this occasion.
Yeah, I don't know if he collapsed after the last fence. During the race, he required veterinary attention. I imagine there may well have been an injury as well, but he clearly was deteriorating and probably should not have taken part in that race. But there's huge amounts of money banking on it. There's huge amounts of, training that's gone into it. But yeah, just thought we'd bring that to you because I know a lot of you really care deeply about animal welfare. So do get in touch on that one if you so wish.
Absolutely interested in your views. gbnews.com/your say is, as ever, the way to get in touch. But my goodness me, a busy show full of live events today. So we won't waste a moment more to get to those news headlines before we're straight back at you with all the show.
Good afternoon. It's just gone 1 o'clock. These are your headlines. The Duke of Sussex has arrived at the Royal Courts of Justice in London to appeal a decision to downgrade his security arrangements while in the UK. Prince Harry is challenging a 2020 Home Office decision reducing his taxpayer-funded protection after stepping back as a full-time royal. Last February, a High Court judge upheld the decision, finding it rational. His lawyer, though, argues he has been singled out for different, unjustified and inferior treatment. In other news, Donald Trump has called for calm despite trillions of dollars being wiped from global markets by his tariffs. The US president urged his critics to not be a panickin, coining a new phrase which he describes as based on weak and stupid people. It comes as European markets opened higher, with London's FTSE 100 rising in the first few minutes of trading after several days of heavy losses. Meanwhile, China has vowed to fight to the end in response to Trump's threat of an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports. Overnight, the US president further escalated his rhetoric on trade with Beijing and the EU over tariffs.
With China, as you know, against my statement, they put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariffs were already. And I said, if that tariff isn't removed by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on. The European Union's been very bad to us. They don't take our cars, like Japan in that sense. They don't take our agricultural product. They don't take anything practically.
But Beijing's Commerce Ministry said it would never accept the, quote, blackmail nature of the US. Meanwhile, the Chancellor has been taking questions in the Commons over Trump's tariffs. Rachel Reeves promised the public, we have your backs.
The United States' decision to impose tariffs has had and will continue to have huge implications for the world economy. These implications have been reflected in the reaction that we have seen in global markets in recent days, which the financial authorities have, of course, been monitoring closely. This morning I spoke to the Governor of the Bank of England, who has confirmed that markets are functioning effectively and that our banking system is resilient. I know too that this is an anxious time for families who are worried about the cost of living. We have your backs.
And some breaking news now. A serving Metropolitan Police officer has been charged with rape following an investigation by Surrey Police. PC Dion Arnold has been charged with 4 counts of rape, 2 counts of assault by penetration and 1 count of sexual assault on the 31st of March. In other news, a 15-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl have been convicted of the manslaughter of an 8-year-old man who was attacked at a park in Leicestershire. Bim Coley was fatally injured in Franklin Park in Leicester on the 1st of September while walking his dog and died in hospital the next evening. Both teenagers cannot be named for legal reasons. Now, a baby girl has become the first child in the UK to be born to a mother from a womb transplant. 36-year-old Grace Davidson received the transplant in 2023 from her older sister Amy and fell pregnant with her miracle baby shortly after. Davidson, an NHS dietitian from North London, was diagnosed with a rare condition of having no womb when she was just 19. She said the birth of her daughter, who she named Amy after her sister, was the greatest gift we could ever have asked for.
The day was special. It felt special because it was the accumulation of years of work from the Womb Transplant UK team, and I was incredibly honoured to be part of that team.
Consultant obstetrician Bryony Jones speaking there. Now, the King and Queen have met the Italian president in Rome. Charles and Camilla are in the Italian capital for the start of a 4-day state visit, which will celebrate ties between the UK and Italy. The state visit was originally intended to include the Vatican, where the King had been due to attend a service in the Sistine Chapel, but that had been postponed because of the ill health of Pope Francis. Earlier, the King and Queen shared 3 new photographs marking their 20th wedding anniversary, which is tomorrow. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Tom and Emily.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 9 minutes past 1 and we're going straight to Downing Street. Our political editor, Christopher Hope, has just left an extended briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman. Chris, what did we learn?
Hi Tom, hi Emily. Yeah, welcome to Downing Street. A longer meeting than normal because it's the last such lobby meeting where journalists like I get briefings from Number 10's official spokesman until till next Tuesday, I think, Monday or Tuesday next week. What we've learned that is steady as she goes. The PM's cabinet met earlier. The PM addressed them and spoke to them about Land Rover, where GBNews was with him yesterday, and the impact on manufacturers like Land Rover from these tariffs. I was surprised that the PM hasn't spoken to Donald Trump since a week last Sunday. That is surprising to me. We are told by Number 10 they're engaging at all levels. We want to engage in a calm and pragmatic way, but other world leaders are beating their path to the door of the White House, jamming the phone lines. Japan has spoken, I think, to Trump, and that's the talk of a possible new tariff negotiation there has calmed the markets. So far RPM hasn't done that. They think there's no need to do it yet, but that's worth monitoring. Britain shouldn't be boycotting American goods, as was proposed by one of the reporters. The spokesman says that goes against our national agenda. There's vague talk about something on procurement rules. Nothing as explicit as today's Telegraph saying that the quangos and government bodies to be told to buy British, but the Cabinet Office is looking at something to do with this, and it goes back to this government getting more and more Brexity as we go into this new Trump era, I think, by almost requiring parts of the government to pay for and order up British goods. In Birmingham, the government's very clear that the Unite deal, that they should get a deal with the council. They say there that yesterday 100 refuse collections were made, 100 more due today, 16,000 tonnes of waste. You heard from Jack Carson there outside the cabinet, the council meeting in Birmingham. Big concerns there. And this weekend, we're expecting more MPs to try and travel to Israel. Number 10 is clear on that after 2 Labour MPs were turned away last weekend. They should be allowed to go there and do their work. So watch that one over the weekend. There could be a big diplomatic row emerging again.
Christopher, I understand there's lots of conversations going on with the Bank of England because rumour is that perhaps the Bank of England might make an intervention, and quite quickly, on interest rates.
Yeah. That's right. Rachel Reeves told MPs earlier from the dispatch box in the Commons that she has spoken to Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England, this morning. Now, I asked in the briefing now if that was abnormal. Should we be worried about that? They said no, they speak regularly. But the timing, of course, comes after the markets tanked on Friday and yesterday, Monday. I think is noteworthy, although the government says those calls often happen. Also, elsewhere in the briefing, digital IDs came up. The government says there are no plans for mandatory digital IDs. There are 3 different groups of Labour MPs today calling for these mandatory IDs as a way almost to control or to deal with the issue of illegal working and controlling where illegal migrants go in this country. That is not being looked at as a mandatory issue by this government. And just finally on small boats, Mark White has been reporting that as many as 500 or 400 small boat arrivals are due in today on the south coast of this country. The government says there's no quick fix for this. It's a criminal industry developed over a decade. It will take some time before the efforts to smash the gangs take effect, but of course the numbers are concerning.
Christopher Hope, thank you so much for bringing us the very latest from Number 10. Very interesting. Digital IDs, it's a debate that always resurfaces, isn't it? I'm starting to think maybe a good idea. I mean, we do need to keep a track of who's actually in this country. Maybe it would help with illegal migration.
I'm just irritated that we don't have digital driver's licences and digital, you know...
We want digital everything.
Well, I just find it very irritating that if I've forgotten to take my wallet to a shop...
Yeah.
I then can't buy alcohol or indeed
Still get
energy
ID'd,
drinks.
do you?
Well, no, if you use a self-service checkout, as I do to avoid the queues... It doesn't make... You could be 8 or you could be 88. They're still going to ID you because the machine forces a person to come and ID you. And this is really irritating.
No, it doesn't. They come and have a look at you.
Oh, yeah.
Up and down.
That's true, that's true.
He looks over 25, he'll do.
That's true.
Under 25.
You're completely correct there. The irritation I have is when I'm trying to buy an energy drink, and which is supposed to be over...
Or Nurofen.
But the thing, just to have a human coming over, it just delays it so much. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, some people worry about the hacking, the control, government control over our lives through digital ID, etc.
Oh,
I do get those concerns.
on us anyway.
Civil liberties, they do have so much on us, but not all in one place. Anyway, in other news, yes, the King and Queen, they have arrived at the Colosseum in Rome for the tour of the ancient landmark, and they've been greeted by large crowds hoping to get a glimpse of the King and Queen, and they've given them a lot of attention, haven't they?
Well, Cameron Walker is there for us, and we can see live pictures of the King and Queen too. They seem to be being shown around the Colosseum as we speak, speaking to, it looks like, experts right there. Cameron, tell us more.
Yes, they've just kind of walked up the steps where I am at the Temple of Venus and Rome, which looks over the Colosseum here, speaking to architectural students and all the rest of it. I was observing them as they were walking just past me, and they were all smiles, and of course that is despite the distraction that King Charles's son made this morning back in London as he appeared unexpectedly to attend his High Court hearing to do with his police security protection in the UK. So an unwelcome distraction for the King and Queen, but they have been very much continuing with their state's duties. So they were there at the Piazza, they were there at the presidential palace to receive the Guard of Honour, watching the flypast, mingling with state dignitaries, or Italian state dignitaries inside the palace. But here is, I think, is what I would describe, let's say, as a money shot, greeting ordinary members of the public, both Italian citizens, as well as tourists as well who happen to be here, but also school children who have come out to greet them as well, waving Union flags. It's that soft power that we see in action here, strengthening relations between Italy and the United Kingdom as well. And it is a very busy schedule for King Charles, and we know he's still undergoing cancer treatment. He ended up in hospital just a couple of weeks ago, but he still appears to be going strong. There are still rumours that he may end up meeting the Pope at some point during this week, but there are, according to Buckingham Palace, there are no plans for that to happen. But we did, of course, see him a couple of weeks ago, and originally that was on the cards. He was meant to be going on a state visit to the Holy See as well. But as for the King and Queen right now, they're just finishing off this engagement here where they are speaking to members of the community who have been laid out to greet them, and then later on tonight they'll be hosting a reception for British and Italian communities at the UK ambassador's residence.
OK, Cameron Walker, thank you very much indeed for that update. And those live shots of the King and Queen are being taught about the Colosseum. Yes, the King is an intellectual, don't you know?
Oh, and he's a massive fan of proper good classical architecture. So he'll, I'm sure, be delighted.
We can replicate that in London, can we?
Oh,
see that in Birmingham,
well, no,
Colosseum?
But we do. In some ways, it's very similar. So St Paul's Cathedral was constructed after the Great Fire of London. In the same way, the space for the Colosseum was cleared by the Fire of Rome in 46 AD, which, well, originally, there's all sorts of allegations that Nero set this fire to build this vast vast imperial
Tom, we've got to get to the bins.
Oh,
we'll park the history lesson and we'll come back to it later.
We'll get to the Colossus.
It is a Colossus.
The statue of Nero, which then got torn down to be replaced by the Colosseum. We'll get to that.
Do you know what is colossal?
Oh, what is it?
The Birmingham bin strikes, because they're continuing to cause absolute chaos. I mean, it's getting disgusting, actually. Warnings from a trade union boss that this crisis could spread across Britain. So, is that a threat? Spread across Britain? The health concerns or the bin strikes?
This coming to a street near you. We've been hearing from pest control experts.
There's no excuse for sofas.
That rats the size of cats could become a threat to children in Birmingham.
Oh, and this is going to really annoy you. Yes, Birmingham MP Tahir Ali. He represents affected areas. He's receiving some criticism, isn't he, for remaining quite silent on the city's bin crisis, but at the same time talking quite loudly and lobbying for an airport in Pakistan. And so he's got a bit upset about some of the criticism. Let's take a listen.
On 28th of March, I shared on social media the work I and colleagues across the two houses have been doing to urge the government of Pakistan to build an international airport at Mirpur. This is an important issue for over 1 million British Kashmiris who overwhelmingly come from there and face delay and danger whilst travelling from Islamabad to Mirpur. The reactions to that post, including from some members of the House, have resulted in us being subject to Islamophobic, racist attacks and harassment.
Well, that was Tahir Ali speaking in the House of Commons yesterday. You'd think that a Birmingham MP would want to bring up something a little closer to home than an airport in Mirpur, but perhaps that's what he thinks his constituents care about.
Maybe it is what his constituents care about. Let's go to GB News West Midlands reporter Jack Carson, who's there in the thick of things. Jack, tell us exactly what's happening today.
Well, we're about to have, in just about an hour's time, the beginning of the council meeting, just an ordinary city council meeting, but there's a big pressure, big focus, of course, because of the recent scene we've seen across Birmingham with the bin strikes. We know that the Birmingham Conservative Party, you maybe would have seen about 10 minutes ago, a rat behind me. Somebody is dressed up as a rat. That's Rats for Labour, and I've been told that the rat is called Clement Ratley. That is going to be going into the council meeting as well as part of the public debate that will take place as well. But the Conservative Party wanting to put forward a motion which to be voted on for Birmingham City Council to declare a public health emergency, and that comes as we're streeting today the Health Secretary saying that he is concerned around the public health situation in Birmingham and the poor conditions that we're seeing, saying that he understands that people have the right to withdraw their labour. That is part and parcel, he says, of industrial relations in our country, but he says what is not acceptable is allowing these sorts of what he said were unsanitary conditions to occur on people's streets. I mean, there have been negotiations yesterday, continuing today, and likely into the week around the deal between Birmingham City Council and Unite to try and end this industrial action, to try and end this dispute. Yesterday there was no clear indication that a deal had been reached, but there was a sense that things were moving forward. That's what the Unite Regional Officer said there. So things seemingly moving forward, those negotiations continuing today, but across the city those bins continuing to pile up, and mobile waste collection trucks have been around the city. I was at one earlier on today. I spoke to those people there who told me about their feelings around these bin strikes.
I mean, I'm 74 and I'm having to carry my own bin bags up a hill and everything to empty it, and the council taxes are all gone up, everything's going up, and there's us having to do our own work. I don't know what we're paying for.
It's the council that's caused it, isn't it? You know, I mean, they've lost over £700 million of our money, and they've given themselves a 5.7% pay rise, and we're being made to pay for it. This does help, yeah, but it shouldn't come to this. We're not a third world country.
I can see it from both sides. I understand that the city needs to recover the money, right? But I also know that these guys, the bin workers, they got a life. They got to take care of their families, their kids. They got to work, and you can't just keep prolonging this experience for everybody in Birmingham because people want to be stubborn.
Yeah, well, you can hear there some quite unhappy people about the levels of rubbish piling up on the streets. Negotiations, I was saying, still ongoing as to whether this dispute can be ended.
Yeah, I really feel for the people of Birmingham at the moment. Jack Carson, thank you very much. Do bring us any updates on whether, you know, these politicians can actually sort something out. Slightly concerned about this Unite boss, or this national officer, saying that this could be repeated around the country because there's so many bankrupt councils. Wow. Brilliant. OK, well, coming to a city near you.
If it's coming to a city near you, perhaps you want to get on the road. Perhaps you want to drive around the country trying to avoid the piles of rubbish, trying to avoid the giant rats. And if you need that, you'll need a motorhome worth over £67,000. Lucky for you, we've bought one, and it could be yours. Here are all the details.
We're making the Great British Giveaway a getaway with a chance to win our biggest prize to date. You could be the proud owner of this Elneg Baron 560 motorhome, worth over £67,000. Supplied brand new from Marquis Leisure, you could be exploring Great Britain and beyond this summer and making memories to last a lifetime. This motorhome comfortably sleeps 4, has its own kitchen and bathroom spaces, and comes complete with all of the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle of this calibre. And that's not all, as we'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash so you can get started on your next adventure as soon as possible. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. postcard or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1:26. Now, a baby girl named Amy has made history in the United Kingdom, becoming the first child to be born from a womb transplant.
This is incredible news. Now, the procedure involved Grace Davidson, the mother of baby Amy, receiving a womb from her older sister in the first womb transplant back in 2023.
Well, earlier, in a world exclusive, Bevan Andrews spoke to the obstetrician who delivered the baby.
It was special. It felt special because it was the accumulation of years of work from the Womb Transplant UK team, and I was incredibly honoured to be part of that team. The surgery was complex, but actually it had a really good outcome, and it was a great experience. I have to say, I'm going to admit, a little bit of a watery eye looking at the baby. We're being held by the mummy afterwards.
There were 16 of you in that surgery. Was there quite a lot of people crying?
I think we all held it together. I think there was a lot of joy. There was a lot of joy, and remembering that it was a special day for us, but it was a super special day for Grace and her baby, and it was the birth of their beautiful baby, and so we were trying to keep that as normal as a special for them.
Just incredible news. A woman who was told that she could never have children because she was born with no womb, being able to have that magical experience thanks to technological development thanks to science. I mean, it is the most incredible story.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I feel very happy for the couple there. It must be awful knowing that you can't have children and not knowing how on earth you're going to get there. I understand she was given the option of surrogacy and adoption, but I think carrying her own baby felt important to her and the couple. So big... now, there was a little bit of controversy over whether this was funded by the NHS and whether that should be a priority for NHS with all its stretched resources. It's not a life-saving thing. But I believe that the womb transplant itself was all funded by a charity, and then the ongoing care that every woman gets when they're pregnant was facilitated by the hospital and the NHS.
Well, let's get all of the details now. Joining us is GB News Science and Health Editor Lucy Johnston. Lucy, thanks for joining us. This is a real miracle in this country.
It is fantastic news, and scientists are saying that it's akin to the first baby born from IVF in 1978. So it's a real step change in fertility care and sort of marks a new era, they're saying. It is the first baby born in the UK. There are about 15,000 women of childbearing age who either are born without a womb or they have to have a hysterectomy for cancer or other reasons. So it kind of offers up an option for those women other than surrogacy or adoption, which is not always an option for them. It is the first baby in the UK, but it's not the first baby in the world. The first womb transplant actually happened in 2000, and in 2014, the first live birth was born to a mother who'd had a womb transplant in Sweden. So there have been about 65 babies born to women who've had womb transplants and 135 womb transplants today in the world. And the reason why the UK is sort of lagging behind, I'm told, is because our regulators are abundantly cautious, and there's good reason for that. The surgery is obviously really complicated. I think that operation took about 17 hours. There's risks to the donor. There's also risks to the mother, and she has to be on really powerful anti-rejection drugs, which are linked to all sorts of problems like cancer and kidney disease. So it's important to remember, that it's not just an easy solution for women. Although I gather from the charity, there's had about 400 calls from women who are making inquiries to have similar operations. So it's good news. That charity, they did do everything for free, and all the staff did everything voluntarily. So there is no impact on the NHS, but it is a complicated...
Lucy, are there any ethical concerns surrounding this? Because I have seen from some campaign groups that they're worried that this leads to the commodification of female bodies, and that perhaps there could be pressure on women to give up not only other organs, but also now the womb, and a lot of pressure around childbirth and things like that. Also with the question of surrogacy feeds into that, and egg harvesting and all of this type of thing.
Yes, it's hugely problematic, and obviously in this case the sister was a willing donor. The trials that's going on with Womb Transplant UK, the charity, they're getting 15 cases, no more, and I think most of those are from deceased donors, so people that agreed to donate their organ after their death, and some live donors. But I think the whole process, it's not available on the NHS at the moment. It is a trial, and they're looking at all those ethical concerns, and we are very tightly regulated in this country. So it may be in the future that there are concerns about this, and people will be able to afford it and others won't if it doesn't become available on the NHS, which is obviously another issue. So I think it needs to be really carefully done. And
you can imagine, Lucy, in other countries with fewer regulations and fewer checks and balances, that you could get to a position where women are selling their wombs, which would spark some moral questions. But Lucy, we'll have to leave it there. Lucy Johnston, thank you very much indeed, GB News Science and Health Editor. But on the face of it, extraordinary development and wonderful for that particular couple.
And far cheaper than I was expecting as well. I mean, £30,000 is a lot of money, but I mean, for the price of a car... Well, I don't know. A nice car.
I don't know if she's going to have any ongoing care and that sort of thing that might rack up the bill, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's programme, including digital IDs. Could they become a reality? We'll be speaking to a Labour MP at the forefront of the campaign to bring them in. That's after the headlines with Sophia.
Tom, Emily, thank you. Your headlines at 1:33. The Duke of Sussex has arrived at the Royal Courts of Justice in London to appeal a decision to downgrade his security arrangements while in the UK. Prince Harry is challenging a 2020 Home Office decision reducing his taxpayer-funded protection after stepping back as a full-time royal. Last February, a High Court judge upheld the decision, finding it rational. His lawyer argues, though, he has been singled out for different, unjustified and inferior treatment. Donald Trump has called for calm despite trillions of dollars being wiped from global markets by his tariffs. The US president urged his critics to not be a panicking, coining a new phrase which he describes as based on weak and stupid people. It comes as European markets opened higher, with London's FTSE 100 rising in the first few minutes of trading this morning after several days of heavy losses. Meanwhile, China has vowed to fight to the end in response to Trump's threat of an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports. Beijing's Commerce Ministry said it would never accept the blackmail nature of the US. Meanwhile, the Chancellor has been taking questions in the Commons today over Trump's tariffs. Rachel Reeves promised the public, "We have your backs."
The United States' decision to impose tariffs has had and will continue to have huge implications for the world economy. These implications have been reflected in the reaction that we have seen in global markets in recent days, which the financial authorities have, of course, been monitoring closely. This morning, I spoke to the Governor of the Bank of England, who has confirmed that markets are functioning effectively and that our banking system is resilient. I know, too, that this is an anxious time for families who are worried about the cost of living. We have your backs.
In other news, a 15-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl have been convicted of the manslaughter of an 8-year-old man who was attacked at a park in Leicestershire. Bim Coley was fatally injured in Franklin Park in Leicester on the 1st of September while walking his dog and died in hospital the next evening. Both teenagers cannot be named for legal reasons. And Birmingham-style bin strikes could break out across the UK as workers demand higher pay. That's according to a trade union boss. Claire Keogh said members were angry that Birmingham City Council had failed to surrender in the dispute. It comes as the government is facing calls to bring in the army to clear the streets of Birmingham. A major incident's been declared in the city after 5 weeks of uncollected rubbish and mile-long queues at tip sites. Striking workers say they're being forced onto near minimum wage pay, while the council claims it's made a fair deal. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2784 and €1.1674. The price of gold is £2,360 and 10 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 at 7,897 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report. Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Russell Holding. The M1 in Leicestershire is closed southbound from junction 21 at Leicester to 20 at Lutterworth after an accident. There are queues back beyond junction 21A north of Leicester, and there's a lane closed northbound past the scene with long delays on that side too. On the M25 in Surrey, the outside lane's closed anti-clockwise where there's an accident, and a mile and a half after junction 11 at Chertsey, causing roughly 5 miles of queues towards there from junction 12 for the M3. And in West Sussex, the A23 is closed northbound from Pycombe to the Aldbourne junction for repairs after an accident accident yesterday, causing long delays heading away from Brighton. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Because we've got this Snow White premiere. What's going on with it? I've been hearing about this Snow White film for about 2 years, and it doesn't seem to be good news in the headlines.
No. I mean, it's quite unusual for a kids' film to get so much controversy, but it has been sort of dogged by sort of bad headlines and bad press for quite a long time. And then in the sort of immediate run-up to its release, it looks as though they've sort of scaled back a lot of the promotion to sort of avoid more controversy. But that in itself is creating headlines. I mean,
we're seeing some of the trailer now for anyone watching it on TV. We're seeing some of that. I must say, when I watched the trailer, I wasn't particularly impressed by it.
Well, I mean, some of the Disney live actions have been brilliant and some of them have been less good. I mean, I sort of think any press is good press. I mean, more people are aware that the film's coming out now than would have been if we hadn't had all this bad press. And I suspect that, I mean, people who are going to go are people taking their kids. And the kids aren't bothered about what one of the actresses has said or whether the dwarves are real or CGI. Like, I think it'll probably do very well. I think it depends whether it's any good, really. I think that's the most important thing. I think the negative sort of press and controversy around it probably isn't going to have a massive factor in the takings.
What does scaled back mean in terms of the premiere? What does that actually, how will that look?
So a lot of films will have a big premiere in Leicester Square. That's the sort of, like, I guess in Europe, the sort of HQ for premieres, and you get a lot of, you know, the world will jet in to cover that. Whereas this has had a sort of quite a small scale premiere in northern Spain in a castle. So it kind of looked quite grand, but it was on a very small scale. So and there haven't been as many interviews and things like that with the cast, I think, because of everything that's happening. So it has been scaled back a bit. But I mean, like, we're talking about it now, so it's working, whatever they are doing.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 20 minutes to 2. And could digital identification really become reality?
Well, more than 40 Labour MPs from 3 influential backbench groups have called on ministers to introduce these digital IDs. They claim they would boost productivity in delivering public services and, crucially, crack down on illegal employment and migration.
Well, we're joined now by one of the supporters for these digital IDs and the Labour MP for Hartlepool, Jonathan Brash. Jonathan, thanks for joining us this afternoon. What made you get behind this campaign?
Well, I think there are a number of things. I mean, the first thing is that it's about entering the 21st century. So much of our lives now are digital, and yet a lot of our public services are still operating on paper. There's an opportunity here to actually streamline public services, save huge amounts of taxpayers' money, and deliver a better service to the public, as well as cracking down on illegality, illegal working, illegal migration as well. I genuinely struggle to see what the argument against this is, given that the advantages are so clear.
Well, I think the arguments against are about privacy concerns, about the government's propensity to mess things up sometimes and release information that perhaps they shouldn't. I mean, we've seen that in the NHS, haven't we? We've seen that in other government departments. But is this mostly about immigration? I'm sure a lot of your constituents in Hartlepool are concerned about people coming here, working illegally or being put up in asylum hotels at great cost to the country and the like. So is it mostly about that?
Well, I think it's about a number of things. It is clearly about illegal immigration. There's no question about that. One of the reasons that I think the UK has been a soft touch in the past on this issue is because it's an attractive option, because we don't have something like digital ID, so it's easier to come here and disappear into the workforce illegally. But I would say this about the privacy argument. I carry a card in my wallet every day that has my details on it held by the government. It's called a driver's license. We hand over biometric data to companies like Apple on our phones every day. We're already doing this. I don't think there are really privacy concerns. I think this is about entering the 21st century, saving taxpayers' money, delivering better services, and cracking down on illegality. It seems to be win-win-win as far as the residents of Hartlepool and the rest of the country are concerned.
Now, of course, there was a debate over the introduction of mandatory ID cards back at the end of the last Labour government. That debate really died a death with the 2010 general election. Famously, David Cameron walked round the country in that general election saying we don't want to be a papers, please society. At one point, he even did a slightly inadvisable German accent saying, hand me your papers. I mean, is this the kind of country we want to be, where free-born Englishmen have to hand over papers in order to get by in life? Couldn't we have digital IDs only for people not born in this country?
Well, I don't really see what the advantage of that is. The reality is, as I've already said, our passports carry biometric data on them. We need to use our passports. We have national insurance numbers that carry tons of data next to our name that we have to hand over when we get new jobs or anything like that. Our driver's licenses are required in order to prove various things. If you are lucky enough to look under 25, you have to produce some form of identification if you want to buy alcohol in this country. So the reality is we're doing all this. And frankly, the arguments made by David Cameron are a pretty demeaning argument, to be perfectly honest. And I think if you look at what's happened to illegal immigration since 2010, you could argue that his failure to act is the reason we're in the situation we are now.
To be honest, I think most people are at their wits' end when it comes to illegal migration and all the associated problems that they probably more people than in the past would accept digital IDs, I think. Jonathan, I do want to ask you about some of your colleagues. A huge number of your colleagues seem so interested in lobbying for an airport in Pakistan. Particularly, I'm thinking of a Birmingham MP, Tahir Ali, who's been speaking about this in the House of Commons. He's getting very annoyed at any criticism against him as a result. And we are wondering on this channel, why is there a focus on an airport in Pakistan when Birmingham is literally a dump at the moment?
Well, look, I can only speak for the work I do as a Member of Parliament on behalf of the constituents of Hartlepool. I obviously didn't sign that letter, and I am much more focused on better transport links in my area, which frankly are appalling, including our bus network and issues with Northern Rail. Those are the focuses that I've got, and I'll continue to have those.
Would you have a word with some of them, though, and just say, you know what, priorities here? It doesn't look great that you're lobbying for an airport in a foreign country rather than, you know, lobbying for better bin collections, for example.
Well, look, that's entirely up to them. And of course, their constituents, I'm sure, will make their voices heard if they're unhappy with them. But I think each MP has to focus on their own job, which is their own constituency. And as far as I'm concerned, that's Hartlepool and nothing else.
Now, on this campaign for digital IDs, you are one of a huge number of Labour MPs now calling for this. 3 distinct sort of groups within the party from varying different ideological backgrounds, I must say. Do you think the government's receptive?
I hope so. I mean, look, this is the job of backbench MPs, is to organise, is to show strength and unity and demand from the government that which we think is in the interests of our constituents. You're right, there is a diverse range of MPs all calling for this. And I think that's a very good thing and a strong sign to the government that we'd like to see action on this. So I do hope ministers are receptive.
OK. Jonathan, just very quickly, do you have any idea how much it would cost us all? Because, of course, that is a big concern with the state of things at the moment.
Well, actually, the reality of digital ID is that it would end up costing the taxpayer far less. It would save, I mean, there are estimates when it comes to fraud alone, it would save the taxpayer £1 billion. So I would hope it wouldn't necessarily cost the taxpayer anything.
OK, well, we'll have to wait and see what the Chancellor has to say in due course. But Jonathan Brash, MP for Hartlepool, thanks indeed for joining us on Good Afternoon Britain.
Thank you very much. Well, if you're in search of some sunshine outside of the United Kingdom, here is the forecast.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A cold spell will affect eastern parts of Europe this week. Some areas could see temperatures 10 degrees below average. Rather showery at times across Madeira and Tenerife, with longer spells of rain later through the day. Largely dry, though, across Spain and Portugal, just perhaps the odd shower affecting Nice, Rome, Sardinia and perhaps some shorelines of Greece. But otherwise largely settled, lots of sunshine around, but temperatures in the mid-teens. But we'll see more sunshine as we head through the week. Still rather showery across Tenerife, but temperatures improving to the mid to high teens by the time we reach Saturday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and plenty more to come on today's programme. Indeed, Scotland's largest prison has been slammed for being overcrowded by 30%. We'll be live in Scotland after this.
Hello, it's time for your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Plenty of sunshine yet again for most of us today, and in that sunshine it is going to feel relatively warm, especially towards the west. We still have high pressure firmly in control. This high pressure is going to stay in control for a little while yet, and it's this that's leading to all the settled weather that we've had of late. It's worth bearing in mind there is some cloud around, still affecting the far north of Scotland, and there's a bit more high-level cloud around compared to yesterday, so the sunshine may be a bit hazy, a bit milky at times, but on the whole, most of us having a decent amount of blue sky, and with that blue sky, it's going to feel relatively warm, especially towards the west. Highest temperatures peaking around 18, possibly 19 Celsius, a little bit fresher towards the east because of that wind coming in, albeit the wind's not especially strong. Like I said, there is some cloud across the far north of Scotland. That will continue as we go through into this evening. In fact, that cloud's going to edge a bit further southwards as we go overnight as well. But before then, lots of clear weather to end the day and start the night across much of Scotland, Northern Ireland and also England and Wales. Worth bearing in mind, with these clear skies we will see some pockets of mist and fog developing as we go overnight, but they shouldn't cause too many problems. The other talking point will be the cloud that is going to spread down from the north, so across northern and eastern parts of Scotland, turning cloudier overnight, and down the eastern side of England as well. Some cloud, some low cloud, perhaps even some fog pushing its way in. Away from where we see the cloud, temperatures are going to take a bit of a drop, so particularly in rural spots, turning quite chilly through tomorrow morning, some frost in prone spots. As we go through tomorrow itself then, a bit of a cloudy start across some eastern parts, some low cloud, some fog. A lot of this will burn back as we go through the day, but some coastal parts of eastern England clinging onto that cloud, so staying pretty great here. Elsewhere though, lots of sunshine yet again, and in that sunshine feeling pretty warm. Temperatures similar to today, just a bit more of a breeze in the east and south.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Well, it's 1:51. You're watching and listening to Good Afternoon Britain. Now, inspectors have described Scotland's largest prison as being in a wretchedly poor state.
Very emotive language there. It comes as the facility was found 30% above its official capacity. Nearly two-thirds of prisoners are sharing cells designed to hold just one person.
Overcrowding seems to be a problem for many, but is our country's prison system on the verge of collapse?
Well, let's cross to our Scotland reporter, Tony Maguire, now. He's been asking people that exact question. Tony.
Yes, good afternoon, and indeed stop me if you've heard this one before. Scotland's prisons are overcrowded, only this time it's coming from the mouth of the Inspectorate. His Majesty's Inspectors for Prisons in Scotland wrote to the prison after conducting an inmate survey and then indeed before inspecting the prison just about the conditions inside, and we're quite shocked to find out, of course, that Scotland's biggest prison, HMP Berlin, is overcrowded by almost 30%. Now, Scotland's prison estate is about 8,000 strong, and indeed here at Berlin holds around 20% of the country's inmates. But inside this prison behind me is only really built for 987, yet recent numbers suggest that it's closer to around 1,200 just now. Now, don't forget that in February and March there was a spate of early early releases. Those were prisoners that had been sentenced to less than 4 years, had served 40% of their sentence, and indeed were involved in no violent crimes such as sexual assault and domestic violence. They've been released as they were last summer as well, but of course within a few weeks we've learned that 15 to 20% of them were already back inside just within weeks. Now this is obviously come to the attention of the Scottish Prison Service. They've said that they're glad that the inspectorate didn't, although they spoke about noting 55% of prisoners had witnessed bullying behaviour against inmates, and indeed 40% of them suggested it happened to themselves. Inspectors never saw any of that, but they accept that the problem of overcrowding is very, very real here at Barlinnie and indeed across the UK, it would seem. The long-term solution for this is the building of the new HMP Glasgow. Now, that is going to be a capacity of just over 1,300, barely covering the number of inmates inside Barlinnie today, but certainly that's already been delayed till 2028 and is expected to cost the taxpayer a tidy £1 billion.
OK, thank you so much. Tony Maguire there in Glasgow. What a disastrous state of affairs, isn't it?
It's almost like we should just build
like
some more blooming prisons.
There's one on the way, isn't there, though? That's in England, not Scotland.
But I mean, there was meant to be a whole host of prisons built, and then wherever they were proposed, the local community said no.
But Keir Starmer's about to take a grilling. He's appearing before the liaison committee. MPs are going to ask him all sorts. I wonder how much of a kicking he'll get.
That after the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Not much rain in the forecast for the next couple of days, with high pressure still firmly in control. As a result, we're going to see lots of settled weather around, but cloud amounts are going to change as we go through the next couple of days. For the time being though, we've had lots of sunshine through today and we're going to stay with the fine, clear picture as we go into this evening. However, a bit more cloud will push its way down across parts of northern and eastern Scotland, and overnight some of that cloud's going to feed in from the North Sea across some eastern parts of England as well. Some low cloud mixed in with this, some fog possible as well. Further west, clearer skies, and under these temperatures taking a bit of a dip. Similar to last night, a touch of frost quite likely in prone rural spots. Even in the towns and cities, it is going to be a bit chilly for many of us first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow morning, in the east, it's going to be a cloudy start, quite murky for some places, brighter further west, though there could be a few pockets of mist and fog around. Similarly, across parts of Scotland and northern England, eastern areas quite grey, quite cloudy, some low cloud, some fog in places, but in the west we have a lot of bright weather. Then as we go through the day, some of this cloud towards the east is going to linger, particularly around some eastern coastal parts of England, but generally we're going to see it burning back, so less cloud, more sunshine developing for most of us, and all the time in the west, plenty of sunshine on offer here. And again, west is going to be best when it comes to those temperatures, highest towards the west here, again mid to high teens quite widely. In the east, with a bit more of a breeze and that nagging cloud, it's actually going to feel a little chilly for some of us. Little change as we go through tomorrow evening, sticking with some cloud across eastern parts, further west, clearer skies for most. But as we go into Thursday, we are going to see a change in our wind direction, so actually eastern areas are going to see their temperatures rising quite markedly, more places getting into the low 20s. Bit of rain in the north by the end of the week.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS SMS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Tuesday, the 8th of April. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer will face grilling questions from Parliament's most powerful MPs, all in the next half hour. This comes as the Chancellor tells the Commons that US tariffs will continue to have huge implications. What will the Prime Minister say?
What will he say indeed? Meanwhile, King Charles and Queen Camilla have been visiting the Colosseum in Rome as they continue their historic visit to the Italian capital. Our royal correspondent joins us.
Yeah, the King and Queen remain stoic at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier before coming here to the ancient Colosseum, the symbol of Rome, accompanied by the Gladiator theme tune on military bands.
Well, elsewhere, Donald Trump refuses to blink on tariffs as he called concerned Americans panicans. Well, panicans doesn't really work, does it? Is he right, or are people right to panic? We'll be joined by the Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Trade in the latest reaction.
Oh. And yes, rats the size of cats are roaming the streets. Not this one. This one's a protester. Roaming the streets of Birmingham, with experts now warning of a health crisis sweeping the city. Even one of the union leaders is now saying, oh, this could happen everywhere around the country if we're not careful because of all these bankrupt councils. Luckily, the local MP, though, has been avidly campaigning for a new airport in Pakistan. We'll be live on the ground.
Well, that rat there is called Clement Ratley, here for the council meeting today, where the Birmingham Conservative Party is going to put a motion forward to try and get the council to declare a public health emergency. It comes as the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says he's concerned at the unsanitary conditions here on Birmingham streets.
Yeah, it's a busy afternoon. We're going to be looking at what's going on in Rome, in London and in New York.
Yes, and lots of you getting involved with the digital ID chat, not very impressed, and they do agree that perhaps it would be a good idea to give them only to newcomers, but I'm not sure if that would be discrimination.
Oh, the ECHR would probably have something to say about that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so maybe that's not the one, but keep your views coming in. gbnews.com/your say. We are going to quickly get to the headlines with Sophia.
Tom, Emily, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 2 o'clock. These are your headlines. Ukrainian President Zelensky says 2 Chinese soldiers have been captured while fighting in eastern Ukraine. He said his forces had fought 6 Chinese soldiers and 2 of them had been taken prisoner, adding that he had ordered officials to obtain an explanation from Beijing. China has been accused of helping Russia's war in Ukraine, though Beijing has repeatedly denied allegations. Donald Trump has called for calm despite trillions of dollars being wiped from global markets by his tariffs. The US president urged his critics to not be a panickin, coining a new phrase which he describes as based on weak and stupid people. It comes as European markets opened higher, with London's FTSE 100 rising in the first few minutes of trading this morning after several days of heavy losses. Meanwhile, China has vowed to fight to the end in response to Trump's threat of an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports. Beijing's Commerce Ministry said it would never accept the blackmail nature of the UK. Meanwhile, the Chancellor has been taking questions in the Commons over Trump's tariffs. Rachel Reeves promised the public, we have your backs.
The United States' decision to impose tariffs has had and will continue to have huge implications for the world economy. These implications have been reflected in the reaction that we have seen in global markets in recent days, which the financial authorities have, of course, been monitoring closely. This morning I spoke to the Governor of the Bank of England, who has confirmed that markets are functioning effectively and that our banking system is resilient. I know too that this is an anxious time for families who are worried about the cost of living. We have your backs.
In other news, the Duke of Sussex has arrived at the Royal Courts of Justice in London to appeal a decision to downgrade his security arrangements while in the UK. Prince Harry is challenging a 2020 Home Office decision reducing his taxpayer-funded protection after stepping back as a full-time royal. Last February, a High Court judge ruled the decision, finding it rational. His lawyer argues he has been singled out for different, unjustified and inferior treatment. Now, a 15-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl have been convicted of the manslaughter of an 8-year-old man who was attacked at a park in Leicestershire. Bim Coley was fatally injured in Franklin Park in Leicester on the 1st of September while out walking his dog and died in hospital the next evening. Both teenagers cannot be named for legal reasons. A baby girl has become the first child in the UK to be born to a mother from a womb transplant. 36-year-old Grace Davidson received the transplant in 2023 from her older sister Amy and fell pregnant with her miracle baby shortly after. Davidson, an NHS dietitian from North London, was diagnosed with a rare condition of having no womb when she was just 19. She said the birth of her daughter, who she named Amy after her sister, was the greatest gift we could ever have asked for.
The day was special. It felt special because it was the accumulation of years of work from the Womb Transplant UK team, and I was incredibly honoured to be part of that team.
Consultant obstetrician Bryony Jones speaking there. Now, GB News can reveal that hundreds of small boat migrants have crossed into UK waters this morning, with Border Force struggling to cope. More than 400 migrants are attempting to make the crossing, taking advantage of a short weather window. 3 small boats have already made it to the UK. At least 3 more are currently in French waters, but making steady progress towards the UK side of the Channel. And the King and Queen have posed in front of the Colosseum after meeting the Italian president in Rome. Charles and Camilla are in the Italian capital for the start of a 4-day state visit, which will celebrate ties between the UK and Italy. The state visit was originally intended to include the Vatican, where the King had been due to attend a service in the Sistine Chapel, but that had to be postponed because of the ill health of Pope Francis. Earlier, the King and Queen shared 3 new photographs marking their 20th wedding anniversary tomorrow. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Tom and Emily.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. At 7 minutes past 2, breaking news for you. Volodymyr Zelensky has said Ukraine's military has captured 2 Chinese citizens fighting for Russia in the eastern Donetsk region.
Yes, this of course comes as the trade war heats up elsewhere. Are we heading towards a very dangerous situation? This sounds, on the face of it, very worrying indeed. Is Ukraine now fighting a war with Chinese citizens as well as Russian ones? And what does that mean for us, NATO, the European Union, etc., etc.? We're going to have more with our Home and Security editor very shortly, so don't worry, we'll get you the very latest on that breaking story.
But first, the King and Queen have been at the Colosseum in Rome for a tour of the ancient landmark, where they were greeted by large crowds hoping to get a glimpse of the royal couple.
And it looked like they greeted every single person who was there in the crowds. And let's cross live to Rome because our GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker is there for us. Cameron, it's been a rather splendid day, quite a lot of pomp and pageantry, a lot of greeting of royal fans. Rather lovely.
Yeah, it was really lovely, Emily, and I think the soundtrack was my favourite part of the day with Waterloo by ABBA, and then we had the Gladiator theme tune, of course, which we saw because obviously very poignant being here outside Rome's. It's so cheesy. Yeah, we like it being cheesy, Emily, and I think the King and Queen did as well, as you say, greeting a number of school children, waving their flags, greeting members of the public who had gathered as well. And of course, this is really the symbol of Rome, isn't it? It's the ancient Colosseum, and the King was particularly taken by some of the Rome archaeological students even, and learning about the conservation of this monument such as this. The Queen was speaking to a couple of people who work with domestic violence charities here in Rome, a real passion of hers to tackle domestic violence. But it was kind of the money moment, I think, here. This morning, the King and Queen were, let's say, slightly distracted because 5 minutes before their arrival, Prince Harry decided to show up in the court in the UK for his case against the Home Office over his police protection. It was an unwelcome distraction, but they did obviously continue as normal with their engagements, including meeting the President at the Presidential Palace here in Rome, a magnificent flypast by the Red Arrows and the Frecce Tricolori, which is the Italian version of the Red Arrows. It's meant to symbolise the unity when it comes to armed forces between the UK and Italy. Of course, they're 2 NATO allies. The war, as you've just been talking about, in Ukraine continues, so that's very much part of a state visit, isn't it? The UK government sending the British monarch across to Italy to strengthen relations between the UK and Italy. And over the next few days, that is going to continue because the King is going to become the first British monarch in history to address a joint session of the Italian Parliament tomorrow. He's also going to be hosting a reception tonight at the UK Ambassador's residence alongside the Queen, involving lots of British and Italian community members. So lots on the agenda. Of course, mindful of the fact he still is continuing with his cancer treatment, but he is not slowing down. If anything, he's speeding up. There's lots of engagements taking place, and that is despite a third of them really being cut because, of course, the Pope's health is not great, so the Vatican part of his state visit was cancelled.
Very much indeed, and looking at those pictures there, it's really nice to see the royal couple visiting such a historic landmark.
It's a great photo, yeah.
And obviously great for the British Army to be getting such advice from the ever-powerful Italian army that throughout history has been so very successful.
Little tiny dig.
They were defeated by Ethiopia.
Well, I mean, there's a war going on, isn't there?
Oh, no, I shouldn't. We do a lot of cooperation with the Italians. They're very good now.
It doesn't involve any weapons yet, but it is a war. It is a trade war. Of course, it's escalating with China vowing to fight to the end, presumably. Beijing is accusing the United States of economic bullying following the US president's threat to slap an extra 50% tariff on Chinese goods if China doesn't choose to withdraw its retaliatory tariffs. So it's a bit tit for tat at the moment, America threatening even more.
Meanwhile, European markets were up slightly this morning when they opened for trading after enduring a lot of turbulence yesterday. Of course, the FTSE 100 experienced yet another drop, this time its worst day for a year. But are things now slightly on the up?
Well, should we get the reaction of Andrew Griffiths, who is Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Trade? Andrew, a worrying time. Donald Trump has said we shouldn't be panicans, so we should stay calm and carry on. Keir Starmer is saying similar. But what would you say to businesses out there, not just businesses who import to the United States, but those who trade with other countries? What would you say to them at this point?
Well, what we shouldn't be doing is carrying on as we were before. The government has no real understanding of business. There's no one around the cabinet table who has deep experience of business. And many of the things that they are doing are equal or more damaging than tariffs. So remember, not every business exports, but every business is really suffering from the jobs tax, from the new recycling levies that they've introduced this week, from the family business death tax and the employment rights bill. And so I think a lot of us, and I think this is true of many of the people in business I've spoken to, have said, look, this additional imposition of tariffs, something like the auto industry, that's 25%, so that's a really big issue for them, is coming on top of all of these other things that the government's been doing. Now, they can't control tariffs immediately. I hope they get round a deal, take advantage of our freedom as a nation to enter into trade deals. But right now, and what I think a lot of people had hoped for, was that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor would have used this week as a chance to reverse nearly all of those measures. Still, finally, remember, in the background is the fact that our energy costs are 4 times higher than those in the US. Again, that's a much, much bigger issue if you're trying to compete with the US business than the imposition of a 10% tariff.
Now, there's a lot there. Of course, the government used to claim that the rise in national insurance contributions was to plug a black hole, but now they say this is in fact to fund the NHS. And they say, well, you wouldn't be able to have the £25 billion extra that's being plugged into the NHS without this national insurance tax rise. And it does seem to be that you, as the Conservative Party, are in favour of more being spent on the NHS, but not in favour of higher taxes. How does that work?
Well, they also said that they would reform the NHS. In fact, I think they went as far as saying not a penny extra for the NHS until they have reformed it. Now, we haven't seen any of those reforms. There have been a few words about reforming NHS England. That's great, but it's not words that matter, it's actions. So, look, I don't want to keep going back to, black holes and all of that nonsense. I've said before, there's more evidence for the Loch Ness Monster than there is for that, 22 billion black hole. And they're shapeshifters, exactly as you say. They keep saying the money's for something different. The reality is, we don't have, if you're focused on business, if you want our economy to grow, it's a really competitive world out there. It's not getting any less competitive. If you saddle our employers with more taxes and more red tape, you are going to get less people in work. Our economy will not grow anything like the rate it should be growing, and it's pretty anemic and has been for too long, sad to say. This is the moment for a really big reset. They should be looking at reversing the non-dom changes that are driving wealthy people overseas, wealthy people who contribute to our economy and pay taxes.
When you were in government, Jeremy Hunt, as Chancellor, introduced the first changes to the non-dom status. That was the first initial change that sent some of these people overseas.
Yeah, and I was never a fan then, to be completely honest. I think the UK economy thrives on openness. We need things like exports and international investors for us to compete. So I'm not going to relitigate every last decision. I was in business myself. I was relatively recent to Parliament, and my mission and the mission that Kemi has given me under new management is to position the Conservative Party quite rightly on the side of growing the economy, removing red tape, lower taxes in time when they can be afforded, and making us as a welcome destination to wealth creators,
there is a charge
like
that's
so
been
many
laid
others around the
There
world.
is a charge that's been laid at the Conservatives' door that if the Conservative governments had, managed to negotiate a free trade deal with the United States, that we wouldn't be in this position now having to worry about these extra tariffs that have been slapped on us. So much delay.
No, look, I don't think that's right. I mean, the Conservatives, the Conservative trade policy was one of the unequivocal successes. Signing new trade agreements with countries around the world, joining the CPTPP, going a long way down the road with the US until President Biden was elected and put a stop to all trade deals. And again, I don't want to relitigate Brexit, but if we were part of the European Union, we'd have no opportunity other than to sit behind Ursula von der Leyen and go along with whatever Europe decided from a higher rate of general tariffs. So look, the world's not perfect, but I think I'd rather have the set of cards that the United Kingdom has now, following the last Conservative government, than before that. And as I say, look, I'm a free trader. Tariffs hurt everybody. They will impoverish American citizens, and if we reciprocated, they would damage British citizens through costs, as well as some of the jobs that are being threatened if international trade in general is suppressed. But there are a lot of other levers that the government can pull to help the UK economy. There is a 300-page red tape union-written bill going through Parliament right now. I'm a bit fed up of the Prime Minister keep making speeches, keep writing op-eds, talking about growth. This is an absolute growth killer.
Yeah,
it's
the
a
workers'
jobs
rights
killer.
bill is going to be a big one for business. Thank you so much, Andrew Griffiths, Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Trade. Fantastic to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Interesting
Indeed.
that the Tories are now disowning the last budget of their previous Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, that they would have undone their own changes.
Things change, don't they, Tom?
Yeah,
Things change. I think it's a good point that a lot of business is more concerned about the current domestic situation with all of these taxes and regulations and everything else.
Well, we're going to turn to Birmingham now. Yes. The bin strikes continue to cause chaos, with warnings from a trade union boss that the crisis could spread across Britain.
Yeah, because there are so many bankrupt councils. Now, this comes as a pest control expert is warning that rats the size of cats could become a potential threat to children.
Well, the Birmingham MP, Tahir Ali, is being lambasted for remaining silent on this bin crisis and instead talking about an airport in Mirpur, Pakistan.
Well, joining us now live from Birmingham is GB News West Midlands reporter Jack Carson. Jack, what do you have with us? What's the latest in this awful, stinky saga?
Well, the latest is that negotiations set to continue, just started, we believe, negotiations again between the City Council and Unite. We know they'd been in talks yesterday, nothing coming from that meeting, but all we got in terms of lines from that meeting was that things were progressing, and that is a better sign since just over a couple of weeks ago when negotiations broke down between the Council and Unite over the fact that a consultation period had to be started around compulsory redundancies for those workers who haven't yet accepted any of the options which Birmingham City Council say they have put forward to those workers because of the fact that the waste and recycling collection officer role is being made redundant. That is really where all of these strikes come from. The council say it's 17 members who have not taken up any option and still remain in terms of this negotiation. But this is now the 5th week of this all-out dispute. There's been strike action since the start of January, but this is now the 5th week of all-out action. Today, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, saying he's concerned around the public health factors within this, especially around the bin bags piling up the rats and the vermin that we're seeing on the streets. He says, I understand industrial disputes happen and people have the right to withdraw their labour, but says it's not acceptable to allow these sorts of unsanitary conditions. Earlier on, I spoke to some people who were getting rid of their rubbish at one of the mobile recycling centres. Here's what they told me.
I mean, I'm 74 and I'm having to carry my own bin bag up here, up a hill and everything to empty it, and the council taxes are all gone up, everything's going up, and there's us having to do our own work. I don't know what we're paying for.
It's the council that's caused it, isn't it? You know, I mean, they've lost over £700 million of our money, and they've given themselves a 5.7% pay rise, and we're being made to pay for it. This does help, yeah, but it shouldn't come to this. We're not a third world country.
I can see it from both sides. I understand that the city needs to recover the money, right? But I also know that these guys, the bin workers, they got a life. They got to take care of their families, their kids. They got to work, and you can't just keep prolonging this experience for everybody in Birmingham because people want to be stubborn.
Yeah, there's anger, as you heard there, at the council for this situation and how it's evolved. But the council say that they understand those frustrations. They're working hard. They say now that they're getting more bins collected because of the major incident that they were able to declare. But at the council meeting this afternoon, Birmingham, the Conservative Party will put forward a motion to declare a public health emergency here in the city. So we'll look out for that a little bit later on as that motion goes to vote.
Well, Jack Carson, thank you for bringing us all of that outside one of the most attractive council headquarters in the country, Council House, Birmingham. I kind of wish that...
You say that about all of them.
No, I don't say that about City Hall in London.
That was built before 1900.
And if City Hall in London should look like Council House in Birmingham, that's
wait till we head to Northern Ireland.
Oh, Stormont's one of my favourites.
I know.
It's really easy to get me in a good mood. You know? Show me some pillars and I'm happy.
Show you a nice building. But it is time for the Great British Giveaway, and it's not a piece of beautiful architecture, in a way, but it is something that you can drive away with and live in. It is a motorhome worth over £67,000, and here are the details.
We're making the Great British Giveaway a getaway with a chance to win our biggest prize to date. You could be the proud owner of this Elneg Baron 560 motorhome worth over £67,000. Supplied brand new from Marquis Leisure, you could be exploring Great Britain and beyond this summer and making memories to last a lifetime. This motorhome comfortably sleeps four, has its own kitchen and bathroom spaces, and comes complete with all of the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle of this calibre. And that's not all, as we'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash so you can get started on your next adventure as soon as possible. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, I just posted about the event on Facebook, basically. It snowed the night before, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny if... It was purely for a joke. I posted it on the meme student page. It was purely a joke. Just wouldn't it be funny if the two uni of the Polytechnic had a big, massive sort of Lord of the Rings style battle at the park, snowball fight. And then I woke up the next day and just looked out the window because I live near the park and saw that hundreds of people were there. I was like, oh wow! But I really didn't expect it to be like that. And then they say, we want to come down to the station. I was like, okay, am I under arrest? Have I committed a crime? They don't answer that. They just say, we'd just like to come down to the station. And I was like, okay, do I have to? It's like, you don't have to, but if you don't, we're going to make you eventually. Yeah, we had this really, really nasty, uncomfortable interview with the two officers that conducted it. Where they not only tried to antagonize me, incriminate me, but also blame me for deaths of thousands of people around the country.
Just give us that detail, Zen, because didn't they say to you about something about a number of people who had died of COVID since your snowball fight? Yeah. Like, so nationally, they it was like, do you know in the business meetings where someone writes down a figure and they slide it across the table and you look? That's what they did. He wrote down like 3,000 or so people. Or he wrote down the number 3,000, sitting across the table and said, Mr. Watts, do you know what this number means? And I was like, no. Like, this is the number of people that since your snowball fight have died from COVID-19. How does that make you feel?
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain. At 27 minutes past 2, we're going to dive into that breaking news we heard earlier. A Chinese citizen arrested fighting in Ukraine. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, is here for us. What's this all about?
Yeah, well, it's 2 Chinese nationals that have been detained, according to President Zelensky, and he claims that he has evidence that there are many more Chinese nationals who are fighting on behalf of the Russians in that conflict in Ukraine. He claims that they were captured in the Donetsk region, that at that time the Ukrainian army were fighting some 6 Chinese nationals. Now, you can see these images here. We've blurred that because of the rules around really showing the faces of those who are captured prisoners of war. Now, this could be very worrying and, problematic for Beijing, depending on whether these were volunteers, mercenaries, fighting on behalf of Russia, or whether they're actually under orders and the instructions of Beijing. We've had a statement from Volodymyr Zelensky, who has posted on his Telegram account. He said, "Our military captured 2 Chinese citizens who fought in the Russian army. This happened," he said, "on the territory of Ukraine in the Donetsk region. We have the documents," he says, "of these prisoners, bank cards and personal data. We have information," he says, "that there are many more Chinese citizens in the occupiers' units than just the 2 who have been captured." Now, if he's talking about Chinese citizens in the occupiers' units, i.e. in Russian units, does that suggest perhaps that they are mercenaries? It's certainly possible because, remember, even Western mercenaries are there fighting for Ukraine. There are British soldiers who have been captured, or British citizens, I should say, who have been captured, who have been fighting alongside Ukrainian troops out there. Now, it's going to be a lot less problematic for the Chinese if they are mercenaries, but if they are Chinese soldiers acting under the instructions of the Chinese government, then that's a wholly different proposition. Remember, of course, we have North Korean soldiers who are not in Ukraine proper, we're told, but are in the Kursk region of Russia, where Ukrainian forces have gone in and carried out military operations in that area.
And Russia and China are very much allies in the face of the West, are they?
Yes, but China has so far said that they are not supplying weaponry to Russia. They are not condemning Russia as such, but they are not actively involved in the same sense that North Korea is, in, of course, sending military personnel, but also missiles and drones. And the Iranians also sending missiles and drones to Russia.
Mark, there is no world in which the North Koreans would be fighting in Russia, in the parts that are occupied by Ukraine, or indeed elsewhere in Ukraine, without the say-so of the Chinese. I mean, to some extent, North Korea is a client state of the Chinese. They can't do anything. They can't feed their citizens without the say-so of Xi Jinping.
I'm not sure how much of that is true, but, I can't really speak to just how closely aligned or otherwise, well, we know they're closely aligned, but whether they can act independently to send North Korean troops. I mean, remember,
if China didn't want them to, they wouldn't.
They fire missiles quite regularly over the Sea of Japan, and I'm not sure that necessarily that is something that Beijing would actually want North Korea doing in terms of the instability that it causes in that region.
OK, well, we'll ponder that point because we must go, thank you, Mark, we must go to the liaison committee where Keir Starmer is receiving a grilling from other MPs.
An arrangement which mitigates the tariffs is better. But I think more fundamentally, in answer to your question, I don't think what's happened in the last few days is a temporary passing phase. I think it's a changing world order. I think the world is changing before us as a new era. And therefore, I do think there are two ways in which our plans don't so much change as turbocharge. The first is we have to do much more and go further and faster in making sure our economy is resilient and thriving, and I gave some examples of that yesterday. You'll have seen them, so I won't repeat them here, in relation to Z mandates and life sciences. They're a down payment. They're an example of what I think we need to do here to go further and faster in the changes to our economy. Secondly, we have to talk to other like-minded countries about lowering the barriers to trade between us, and that's why I spent a good deal of the weekend on the phone to international leaders, partly gauging their response, exchanging notes, understanding how they were approaching the challenge, but also having a broader discussion about how they're likely to respond to those. So the plan, I mean, the priority of growth doesn't change, the fundamentals don't change, but in two respects, which is turbocharging the changes we need in our economy. Yes, that needs to go further and faster. I'm absolutely clear about that. And secondly, lowering barriers to trade with other countries. Again, we need to go further and faster, in my view.
And in response to the banking crisis, to COVID, the state threw a lot at different parts of the system to try to make sure that these issues around potential recession and so on were mitigated. Are you planning to do anything like that? And are you looking at the fiscal rules at all? Well,
some of the support that we put in is more in the nature of breaking down the barriers that are in the way, and I think the state can and should do much more of that. So, for example, yesterday on the Z mandate, it was introducing a degree of flexibility rather than putting money behind something. Other examples would be what we're doing on planning and infrastructure, where again it's not so much putting money in, it's changing the way the state operates.
So we know about those, but are there anything that you're looking at other than what you've already put in place or planning to put in place as a result of last week?
Oh yeah, there's a whole host of things. I'm starting with the sectors that are most obviously impacted, because obviously we've got the 10% reciprocal tariff, but for cars it's up at 25%. I was at JLR yesterday, you see the impact there. For steel, there's obviously concern. Already it's challenging with Scunthorpe or Talbot. The committee will know all of those issues. And we're yet to see what the situation will be for life sciences. But therefore I've started with the three sectors likely to be most impacted. But I'm absolutely clear in my own mind that what we're doing in terms of going further and faster needs to be across the board. That was always my view. It needs to go further and faster now.
OK, thank you for that for now. Mr Belless from the MP.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for joining us, Prime Minister. I was very pleased because I have people who work at JLR, albeit at Hale, that you were at JLR at Solihull yesterday, and the support you gave to the car industry. But I want to talk to you about steel as well. It's obviously a very, very urgent situation at Scunthorpe. I know you visited, and one of the asks that seems to be coming out is for the government to provide the support, and maybe this fits in what you just described as changing how the state operates, and that support through buying raw materials to keep production going. Is that one of the things that might still be on the table, or other alternatives being looked at? Because clearly it's a very serious situation. I know you're committed to steel. Yeah, well, look, I mean, thank you for raising Scunthorpe. We are in the middle of discussion, so I hope the committee will forgive me if I don't go through each of the fine detail, but I'm absolutely committed to steel production in this country. All of our plans are going to require infrastructure and more steel in this country, so the last thing we want to do is to lose our capacity on steel.
That's why we set aside quite a chunk of money, £2.5 billion, on top of the money we put into Port Talbot, which got a better deal there. For Scunthorpe, I've spent some time at Scunthorpe talking to the management, talking to the workforce there, and I know firsthand the impact that any loss of capacity at Scunthorpe would have on the workforce and the community and the country. Therefore, we will keep talking. We have made an offer, but all options are on the table in relation to Scunthorpe. I think it's really important, and we're in the middle of those discussions at the moment.
Yes, I think we're keen to learn what all options being on the table means in more detail, if there is anything you can say, Prime Minister.
Well, I don't want to be unhelpful to the committee, but as you can imagine, these are ongoing discussions at the moment. I can reassure the committee that we're doing everything we can to ensure there's a bright future for Scunthorpe.
Okay.
But as to precisely where we've got to in those talks, I'll very happily provide you with further details as soon as I can. There's no problem with that.
Sure.
It's just there's a limit to what I can say right here at the moment. I hope that's understandable.
Thank you for that. And I was at Port Talbot with the Energy Security and Net Zero Select Committee 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They were saying to me how frustrating it is and how worrying it is that the blast furnaces shut there some years before the new electric arc furnaces will be opened.
Well, while the Prime Minister speaks about steel, on the left-hand side of our screen, for those watching on television, we are looking at the New York Stock Exchange. On the right-hand side of our screen, specifically the Dow Jones Industrial Index, which is up by 2.8%, 2.89% as things stand, recovering most of the losses from yesterday, nearing that crucial 40,000 point level. So we'll keep an eye on that as the Prime Minister speaks.
They want to take, as they're doing at Port Talbot, for the electric arc furnace at Scunthorpe. When I was there, it may have changed a little bit since then. They said they could get the new furnace up and running by about 27, 28. But they got a connection point from the grid of 2034. That is what set me off on the work that we need to reform the way the grid operates. This is all part and parcel of going further and faster, because you cannot have a situation where there's such a big gap between finishing one capability and going on to the next capability, and it's not tolerable to have a gap that is caused in that particular case by the slowness of the grid to be able to connect up to the arc furnace. That was the problem in Scunthorpe, slightly different version in Port Talbot, but these are some of the barriers that have to be knocked out of the way. We cannot operate in environments that go so slowly.
Absolutely, Prime Minister, and my committee has heard detailed evidence to make the points you make extremely well. The timeframes you set out, though, are several years away, in some cases considerably beyond the date of the next general election. How are you going to make sure people are better off at the end of the Parliament than they were at the beginning?
In terms of net zero and steel, or more generally?
Both, but I think there is this real concern with the growth figures as we're talking about.
I mean, more generally, there are things that we have been able to do at speed. So, for example, we've had the highest levels of investment into the country for 20 years. In the last 9 months, we've been able to adjust the living wage just last week by £1,400. So the lowest paid in our society got a pay rise. We've been able to ensure that interest rates have come down now 3 times for those on mortgages. That's a huge issue. And we've created 190,000 jobs. So there are things that are already happening, along with things like the waiting list coming down for the NHS, which of course is a health issue on the one hand, but is also an issue of the economy, because people can be faster back into work. So there are things that we can do more immediately. Other things take longer, but I don't accept that things like the grid just have to wait, and that's why, without going into all the things on the grid, but one of the things is to get rid of the old queuing system so that we can prioritise. Your committee will be across this, so we can reduce those times straight away, because we cannot have infrastructure projects taking forever in this country, which is what they've been doing for a very, very long time, and that's where we need to be bolder, go further, go faster, and just get these barriers out of the way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr Eston. Ruth Cadbury MP.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, given the US President has imposed a 25% tariff on car imports, yesterday's announcements by you and the Transport Secretary to support the rollout of EVs was obviously welcomed by UK vehicle manufacturers. But Prime Minister, drivers really need more incentive to switch to EVs, particularly those who don't have ability to charge their vehicle at home. So, and in the UK, we've got geographically very weak infrastructure, very poor level of charging points outside of London and the southeast, and also the price differential to charge. If you can't charge off your domestic supply, you're paying 20%, not 5% VAT, and significantly, and you're also paying for the operator charges.
Yeah.
So it's not that easy to incentivise people to change. Is the Prime Minister and the government looking at this? And do you have any specific thoughts?
Yeah, thank you for raising that, because I think it's a really important point. I think there are a number of things that need to be done. The two things that I think that impact people most in their decision whether to swap to an electric vehicle or not are, first, the crossover price. At the point at which it's as cheap to buy an electric vehicle as it is to buy a diesel or petrol vehicle will be a very significant period. I keep bearing down on that date, which is the late 20s at the moment, but that will be a very significant date because that's the upfront cost of buying in the first place. The second is an anxiety about charging points, and that's why we put more money behind the infrastructure for charging points to a point where there ought to be one being built every half an hour from here on in. But it was amongst the announcements I made yesterday. It wasn't a new announcement, to be fair. Most of what I said yesterday was new in the terms of the flexibility. This was a reassertion of our commitment on charging points. I also want to tilt the question of if there's any missing of targets by those that build cars in terms of carbon. I want to make sure that any of the money that them...
Well, we've just been listening. Well, we've had two things on the screen. If you're watching the television, we've been looking at Keir Starmer, who's with the liaison committee. It is the last day of term before the Easter break. He's being grilled by MPs on various issues. It's on the economy at the moment. And on the right, we've been looking at the New York City Stock Exchange. It does look as though stocks have recovered slightly overnight. So that's some positive news. But shall we speak to GBNews political editor Christopher Hope? Christopher, who's been watching in on the liaison committee. Christopher, tell us, how important are these liaison committees, and how long do they go on for, and what do you make of what's been said already?
OK, answering those questions in order, Emily. They go up, they're mildly important. I mean, in this case, there are 13 chairs of the committees, of whom 10 are Labour, 2 are Tory, 1 are Liberal Democrats. Therefore, the actual scrutiny of their boss, the Prime Minister, by the majority of those MPs may not be as testing as you might expect, though the MPs themselves would deny that they're all individual chairs of House of Commons committees, so they stand up for Parliament in the round rather than just politics. But there is a feeling that they can pull their punches if they want to. It goes on for about 2 hours, and we're going to be hearing from the PM being quizzed about welfare reform, international affairs and elsewhere. Now, so far, we've had questions from one of the most senior on that group, Dame Meg Hillier. She's the Treasury Select Committee chairman. I think some interesting remarks there from the Prime Minister. Obviously, he's concerned and worried about tariffs. The UK is not responding in terms, he's been said, and also to Bill Eston, who is the Shadow Energy Security and Net Zero chairman. But he was asked also one particular question about whether he felt the government might try to nationalise British Steel, and he said in terms, his Prime Minister said in terms, that he couldn't be drawn too far because negotiations are ongoing, but he was committed to steel production in this country. So I think out of the first maybe 10, 12 minutes of this session, the fact that he won't deny, as everyone thinks is happening, some form of nationalisation of British Steel is, I think, telling.
Interesting, Christopher. So what else is on the agenda then, besides from welfare? We're talking about foreign affairs. Of course, what else might Keir Starmer be asked about?
I'm sorry, I missed that, Emily. Say again.
What else is on the agenda for Keir Starmer?
Well, as we said there, welfare reform and international affairs are the two big issues that leap out. He'll be asked a lot about tariffs, I think it's puzzling for me that he hasn't spoken to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, since a week last Sunday, despite the chaos in the markets. That's maybe a question. What are you doing to ensure that we can get this rather swift but limited trade deal that might mitigate the effect of 10% tariffs? What are you doing to help manufacturers like Jaguar Land Rover, who he was with yesterday? That, I think, will be a big concern, I think, for the MPs. But yes, it's the wrapping up of the period of Parliament so far. They then rise tonight and they come back on Easter Tuesday, the 22nd of April. So it's our last chance really to get a good look at the Prime Minister in a parliamentary setting. He'll be out and about, though, I expect, on the local election campaign shortly. But we had a split screen now with the US stock market, the Dow Jones. That's up 3%. So it could be that we won't see the big falls we saw yesterday, which set the hairs running so much here in Westminster.
Yeah, it looks like they are largely wiped out, those losses now back. But we were, of course, down by 2 days, Thursday and Friday, so we're not quite back up there yet. Christopher Hope, thanks indeed for talking us through the Prime Minister's Liaison Committee experience.
Do you reckon Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer will be able to use these tariffs to sort of explain away any economic woes that we face here now?
That's a good point.
Just Donald Trump's tariffs, don't worry.
Yeah, when employment...
It's not our fault.
When unemployment rises, when tax receipts are lower than otherwise, it's all exogenous.
Blame it on the tariffs.
Well, if you're in search of some sunshine that isn't in a country, or perhaps you'd like to travel to a country with higher tariffs, maybe that's what you'd like to do. Europe is right on the doorstep, and here is the weather there.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A cold spell will affect eastern parts of Europe this week. Some areas could see temperatures 10 degrees below average. Rather showery at times across Madeira and Tenerife, with longer spells of rain later through the day. Largely dry, though, across Spain and Portugal, just perhaps the odd shower affecting Nice, Rome, Sardinia and perhaps some shorelines of Greece. But otherwise largely settled, lots of sunshine around, but temperatures in the mid-teens. But we'll see more sunshine as we head through the week. Still rather showery across Tenerife, but temperatures improving to the mid to high teens by the time we reach Saturday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Coming up, lots of you have been getting in touch. I'm just checking the inbox now and the You're Safe, so do get in touch. I will be reading some of them out very shortly indeed, so stick with us.
Hello, it's time for your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Plenty of sunshine yet again for most of us today, and in that sunshine it is going to feel relatively warm, especially towards the west. We still have high pressure firmly in control. This high pressure is going to stay in control for a little while yet, and it's this that's leading to all the settled weather that we've had of late. It's worth bearing in mind there is some cloud around, still affecting the far north of Scotland, and there's a bit more high-level cloud around compared to yesterday, so the sunshine may be a bit hazy, a bit milky at times, but on the whole, most of us having a decent amount of blue sky, and with that blue sky, it's going to feel relatively warm, especially towards the west. Highest temperatures peaking around 18, possibly 19 Celsius, a little bit fresher towards the east because of that wind coming in, albeit the wind's not especially strong. Like I said, there is some cloud across the far north of Scotland. That will continue as we go through into this evening. In fact, that cloud's going to edge a bit further southwards as we go overnight as well. But before then, lots of clear weather to end the day and start the night across much of Scotland, Northern Ireland and also England and Wales. Worth bearing in mind, with these clear skies, we will see some pockets of mist and fog developing as we go overnight, but they shouldn't cause too many problems. The other talking point will be the cloud that is going to spread down from the north, so across northern and eastern parts of Scotland, turning cloudier overnight, and down the eastern side of England as well. Some cloud, some low cloud, perhaps even some fog pushing its way in. Away from where we see the cloud, temperatures are going to take a bit of a drop, so particularly in rural spots, turning quite chilly through tomorrow morning, summer frost in prone spots. As we go through tomorrow itself then, a bit of a cloudy start across some eastern parts, some low clouds, some fog. A lot of this will burn back as we go through the day, but some coastal parts of eastern England clinging onto that cloud, so staying pretty grey here. Elsewhere though, lots of sunshine yet again, and in that sunshine feeling pretty warm. Temperatures similar to today, just a bit more of a breeze in the east and south.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, it's time to delve into the inbox.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Britain. Just gone 10 to 3. But Jack has written in about Birmingham, saying Birmingham city centre is a good one. Great people, enjoyed living there, and think about it often, minus the rats.
Swings and roundabouts, eh?
Well, I think Birmingham is such an interesting city because obviously it has such a grand and glorious past, and some of the architecture there is amazing. And then it had a very iffy period in the middle of the 20th century where not a lot of great things were built. But perhaps there's a resurgence, and the pedestrianisation in the centre is very nice. Hopefully they can get rid of some of the building sites that
You're
currently...
such a nutter, Tom.
What? Birmingham could be such a nicer city.
A brief history of Birmingham for you, lads.
It could be such a nicer city than it is currently.
But Patrick's actually got up to Birmingham to try and find out if residents of Tahir Ali's constituency, I think, whether they care more about an airport in Pakistan or about the state of their streets.
That will actually be a very, very interesting set of interviews.
See what people have to say.
Yeah.
Paul says, don't let the Labour government get away with blaming Trump for everything. Our economy was tanking and going down the drain before the tariffs started. Yes, I think this is important because I do think the Labour government will try and do exactly that.
They will, although...
External forces.
Although yeah, we were flatlining before. I wonder if there'll be the difference between flatlining and actually going
recession.
down.
On the Grand National, June says, that poor horse died. The jockey rode him to death. The race is too long and should be only one time around. I personally think it is too gruelling, and if not shortened, it should be stopped. Yes, others of you saying, you know, they will have done tests before the horse was allowed on the race, and that this was actually just this particular jockey that was at fault for not, you know, giving up, basically.
Yeah.
He pushed the horse when they, you know, had realised that he was too tired.
It's always such a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah.
But do keep your thoughts coming in and don't move a muscle, because, of course, it's Martin Daubney up from 3 o'clock. Martin, what's coming up on your programme?
Tony Blair. He's back, or at least digital IDs are, and the Labour Party are trying to get through the back door this time, saying it will help us curb illegal immigration. But why should we surrender our freedoms to try and capture 1 million people the government should have done a job trying to stop in the first place? Plus, I'll be joined in the studio by Dr Helen Webberley, the controversial doctor who lost her licence for giving puberty blockers to trans kids. Should that be allowed to go on? Fascinating interview coming up. That's all with me, Martin Daubney, 3 till 6. But first, it's time for your weather forecast.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Not much rain in the forecast for the next couple of days, with high pressure still firmly in control. As a result, we're going to see lots of settled weather around, but cloud amounts are going to change as we go through the next couple of days. For the time being, though, we've had lots of sunshine through today, and we're going to stay with the fine, clear